Hello.
And we're live. If I could even control my damn microphone. But the most important thing is that our microphones are working this
Yes, it turns out mine was not plugged in. Go figure. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That was not, yeah.
Well, I'm Peter.
I'm Jen. Welcome
to Generational Change. That was a nice...
If you're not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button.
Yes, we definitely would like you to do that.
And if you like what we're doing, please consider being a Patreon.
Yes, it is something that we like to do.
You can wait until the very end and see if you like it. I don't have my Lulu sticker right handy.
Yeah, I gave you those Lulu stickers.
No, they're up there. They're on the desk. And unfortunately, as great as Lulu is, she doesn't have opposable thumbs, so she can't grab them for me.
Well, that's true.
That's always her biggest woe in life.
We're glad that you all are here this evening. Obviously, this is a very important conversation that we're going to be having as it relates to the future strategy of politicking, especially as we enter the fall, and obviously 2022 is right around the corner. Look, a lot of people want a different option from the Democratic Party, and we don't blame them. You know, we look at the circumstances that we're in right now, and we realize that the two-party duopoly has a stranglehold on our electoral process. It's very difficult to grow any type of you call it a secondary movement, because right now we basically have one party.
Right. I mean, that's the problem. I think that we need to examine. It isn't that, yeah, we're just stuck with two parties. I mean, that kind of sucks in and of itself, but it wouldn't necessarily be so horrible if one of those two parties was a Labor Party. The problem in this country is we have two parties of management, and so we don't have any labor representation, and so that's the problem. So that's why I very much believe that any viable third party needs to be heavily based in labor, in terms of getting enough people behind it, and it needs to appeal to a broad amount of people. And I'm not sure that the People's Party does. I mean, I have some concerns and some questions. My knowledge about them is just the website, and I did see was it the convention last year where Nina spoke?
Yes.
Last summer.
Oh, they had a lot of different speakers.
Yeah, and Dr. West was there.
Chris Hedges was there. Marianne
it was
Williamson
great.
was there.
It was great. And I watched that, and so I thought that was cool. Like, I certainly was supportive of anything that's bringing those people together to talk about things is seemingly a good thing to do. But I don't really know much about like what their plan is, what their strategy is, and I do have concerns that they might be very niche.
That is always the concern with the third party movement. And that's something that we will get into with Nick and Zeynab. Zeynab in particular is somebody that we are very fond of. Zeynab was part of Brand New Congress. She was the person that ultimately selected Jen to be part of their slate because she was a direct contact to Xenia Perez, who used to work directly with candidates down here in South Florida. So we think very highly of Zeynab. She really knows her stuff. She's actually was very thoroughly involved in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's first campaign in 2018. She was very much involved with Paula Jean Swearingen's campaigns in West Virginia. So she really does have a good idea about where things need to go. I also understand that in terms of this particular movement, there are so many roadblocks that are in place in regards to how you really get a third-party movement going. Now, our philosophy, and this is something we'll talk about with Nick and Zeynab, is the idea that if you really want to have a successful movement, it has to be centered around labor. And if it isn't centered around labor, then there's no way that it can succeed because it doesn't reach a broad enough coalition. Right.
It's too niche. Working people issues is something that a lot of different people can get behind. And they are seemingly niche, but I don't know that. I mean, I'm going to, give it the benefit of the doubt. But then the other thing is that third parties will have much better luck getting in local elections and being active more locally and building that infrastructure. And I don't know what they have done. That's why I'm interested to find out. I don't know. But I'm willing to hear what they're up to. I don't,
Okay. So apparently we had a little glitch in our audio, but now it's fine. So thank goodness. That's obviously good.
Why would
but
that be?
What I also would say, and I think that this is very important, is that the Democratic Party is not the Democratic Party of FDR or JFK or even LBJ.
And to be honest, I've since learned enough things in history that those don't impress me anymore either. No. So quite honestly, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other.
But that's why we emphasize the importance of an inside-outside strategy. As our wonderful guest, Sharif Snuggs, who led the movement for Medicare for All, the marches for Medicare for All, he said very eloquently is that you need street heat. That's what you need. You need to have street heat on the outside, and you need to have people who are elected representatives on the inside who actually want to fight for those issues.
Right.
FDR did say, make me do it. It's not like he benevolently said, oh, I'm going to give everybody this stuff. No, there were movements on the outside in the 1930s due to the Great Depression. And there were movements on the outside during the 1960s, during the Civil Rights Movement, that actually got most of these significant pieces of legislation done. That, to me, is really what it comes down to. But let's remember that it used to be known, not that there was anything wrong with it, but it used to be known that, not that there's anything wrong with that, that the GOP was the party of management and the Democratic Party was the party of labor.
Right. Well, that's long gone.
Today, you have two parties of management.
Yeah, so
that's not even up for debate. And we were pointing this out because we just put out a tweet a little while ago about Josh Gottheimer, who's one of the lead Democrats who's basically trying to hold up the reconciliation bill. And if you saw his campaign ad, it says lower taxes, Jersey values.
So
I don't know about you, but that sounds like a Republican to me.
He comes up to me and he's like, what does this slogan sound like to you? He didn't tell me anything about where or what or ever. And you said that. I'm like, it's a Republican. But no, it isn't, right? But yet, no, it's not.
100%.
That's
and that is a perfect segue.
Wait, it was lower taxes and what?
Jersey values.
Jersey values.
Jersey values.
What does that mean exactly? What are
we're going to find
values?
out because we're about to bring in a lovely first guest before we have our long conversation with MPP.
It sounds a little too much like family values, and that's a little too just annoying for me. I don't appreciate that. It's very, I don't like that.
Well, New Jersey 5 is definitely suburbia to the max, and that's something that our lovely first guest, Imani Oakley, I'm sure can share her sentiments about because she is running for Congress in my home state of New Jersey.
Not where you live, though.
No, but I happen to know the area pretty well. And audio bad again. I think my phone is by. That may be the reason. So I took my phone away. Now it's better again. Okay, so hopefully everything's good. Audio strong. We're praying.
Oh, for goodness sake.
We got our fingers crossed every time.
If everybody could see, this is like my house is looks like a Rube Goldberg of
right
studios.
Now it's kind of empty. So I don't know. Maybe that helps.
I don't know.
Without further ado, she is running to represent New Jersey's 10th congressional district. That is in North Jersey. And she is running on no corporate special interest money. And she could be the Cori Bush of New Jersey.
I hate when you do that. Don't do that. She's her own person.
She is
Stop
her own
saying
person,
people are other people.
But she is attempting to take down a political dynasty as well.
We all are.
Yes, we are. But certainly in the state of New Jersey, political dynasties are something that most people know.
Yes, they're Jersey values.
I happen to have lived in New Jersey's 4th congressional district. Chris Smith, who is never getting out of that district until he passes away, unfortunately. Hopefully that's not the case with your current representative. Welcome to Generational Change.
Hey, thank you for having me. Sorry I was a few minutes late. I was having some technical difficulties with my camera, but
we know a thing or two about.
I was going to say you are preaching to the choir of technical difficulties. We live with that. So talk a little bit about your background just for people. Because I mean, I've seen you before. What show did I just see you on? I just saw you talking on something. Were you on Jordan?
Your account.
I don't remember. I just saw you on somebody's show. You came by and so I know a little bit, but if you would just tell a little bit about your background and your area that you're running in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm running in New Jersey's 10th congressional district, which includes parts of 3 different counties, parts of Hudson County, parts of Essex County, parts of Union County, which for folks who aren't familiar with New Jersey, that's like Northeast Jersey. So like right across
by New York.
Yeah, exactly. Right across from Manhattan. So that's the area I'm running in. And a bit about me and why I've decided to run is, in New Jersey, we have all been left out by political party bosses who not only see our communities as financial and political playgrounds, but also political party bosses who have literally manufactured a democracy for themselves where they always win, and everyday people who are just trying to keep roofs over their head, people who are just trying to keep food on the table, people who are just trying to keep their environment safe for their kids, always lose to corporate interests, to developers, to ICE agents. We actually have a real problem with ICE facilities here in New Jersey. Most people associate that type of problem with like Arizona or
Florida.
Yeah, Florida. But, we have it right here just as bad in New Jersey. And so, I'm running because I'm sick and tired of it. I am sick and tired of watching year in, year out, these party bosses exploit our neighborhoods and bring nothing to help everyday people. And it's so gross. And I'm looking to run and to beat them. And to show, not only beat them, but also show that it can be done, because they have a lot of fear. They've instilled a lot of fear into folks. And I don't think they're anybody to be afraid of. And I think we can beat them and take them out.
Imani, if you could, and I was alluding to, the whole Cori Bush situation, because the district you're running in is very similar to the district that Cori was able to win. It was a dynastic situation in which it had been multiple generations.
Are you talking, it's very urban?
It's not that it's urban, it's that it happens to be a dynasty family that runs this, runs it, because that's what they do. They run it. Can you talk a little bit about the current representative and how this has been going on for now multiple generations, unfortunately?
Right. So the person I'm running against inherited the seat from his dad. And, to be honest, his father was actually a pretty good congressman. I mean, you ask anybody in this district, they all knew his father. They were all like, yeah, he actually did a lot for the Black community here. But then his father passed and Donald Payne took over his seat. And for 10 years, he has done nothing with it. And people notice, because as of 2019, this district was #1 in the entire nation for foreclosures, mostly affecting older Black and brown homeowners. Mm-hmm. New Jersey is actually one of the few states to not have recovered since the housing crisis, right? And to have those type of issues going on, you think you'd have a congressperson who'd be, railing against evictions, who's railing against anything that's hurtful to people trying to live in homes, railing against these banks that sell people's mortgages to private lenders who then slap on all these new fees so people can't afford it anymore. And what we've got from Donald Payne is nothing. Literally nothing.
Let me ask you, from whom does he take his money? Who Right. See, this is because this will answer a lot of the questions as to, well, why doesn't Mr. Payne care about his people? And we know why. So, who are his big benefactors?
Yeah. So 70% of his fundraising comes from corporate PACs. Last quarter, he actually took money from an oil pipeline PAC as well as ExxonMobil. And to date, he has not signed on to a Green New Deal, nor has he introduced any independent environmental legislation of his own. And this is a district that has some of the highest rates of childhood asthma in the nation, as well as a severe problem with lead, not only in the water, but also in the paint of old homes and apartment buildings, and also in the soil as well, which is like one that people don't really talk about. And so, he's taking it from corporate PACs. If I'm remembering correctly, he also took money from Amazon last cycle. So 70% of his money is coming from corporate PACs. Oh, he took money from Merck, Big Pharma as well.
Well, you can't be in New Jersey and not take money from Big Pharma. They're not going to have that. No.
Hey, I'm here though. I'm here.
Okay, okay. But if you're on the corporate payroll and you're in New Jersey, you're taking Farm PAC.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unfortunately, New Jersey is sandwiched between the biggest market in our country and probably the 5th or 6th largest market in our country in Philadelphia. So it seems like everything that happens in between, it's like everything is pay to play in New Jersey. And that's something that we really need to change. If you could, Imani, talk about the impact. I just, because Jersey's my home, away from home, when you think about driving on the New Jersey Turnpike, everybody thinks about, exit 13 and all of the massive, whether it's the sulfur plants or anything that is not doing our environment any good. And the fact that nothing has changed there in over 30 years, you would think we would see some wind farms of some kind. We would see some type of geothermal or some type of biofuel plants, things of that nature. We don't see any of that. And if you could talk about the impact, because that particular region is very close to your district, how you currently see it and what you would be fighting for should you become the next representative.
Yeah, absolutely. So the issue, again, we have some of the highest rates of childhood asthma in the nation, severe issues with lead, really, really poor air quality. We consistently receive Ds and Fs on air quality rankings by environmental groups. And the reason why it's been able to stay this way for so long is that these politicians are protected by what we call the ballot line. Now, in New Jersey, we have the most corrupt ballot design in the entire country.
I've heard this.
Yes.
Yeah, I won't
Zeynab, this is what Zeynab Spizakis was dealing with. I remember. Yeah, I'm sorry. Can go on. Yeah,
no worries. Yes, all the candidates from 2020 who ran against the line dealt with any candidate, really. Bernie Sanders actually dealt with it, fun fact. He was not put on the party line. So, but basically what this does is it places establishment Democrats in this really long column. And there are like very small demarcations for what positions they're running under their names, but it's not separated. So like what a regular ballot looks like is it'll have the title of the position and everybody running for it under it. Then you'll have another position, same thing, everybody running for it under that, whether they're on the same team or not. In New Jersey, the establishment calls themselves, like I've heard the establishment call themselves the green team or like whatever it is they give themselves that year. And they put themselves in one long column. And what this does is it tricks voters into thinking like, oh, well, I'm a Democrat, so all the Democrats are here. Like, this is where I have to go. And they put a really popular name at the top. So then it ends up that, everybody goes and votes down this line. And in low information elections, it's really damaging for the challenger because, they're being overwhelmed by this system. But something interesting happened in 2020 where Bernie Sanders was not given the line. He was out in what we call ballot Siberia, which is like either way off to the side or way down at the bottom by yourself. And Joe Biden was given the line. And what this did was, because Bernie has such high name recognition, voters became confused and they were like, well, wait, Bernie's over here, but all the Democrats are over here. But I want to vote for Bernie, but I also want to vote for some down ballot people. Like, what can I even do here? And there were literally people that I had to like explain, like, no, you can vote for Bernie and vote for these people. So it also confuses voters. It's a really, really corrupt system, and it keeps people in office for years, sometimes decades. And so, that's one of the reasons why things like that keep happening. But what I plan to do about it is, one, I am a firm supporter of the Green New Deal. And every interview I go on, I like to say out loud what this means, because I think that establishment Democrats try to make it a pariah and try to make it like a dirty phrase. But what it is it tackles two problems at once. It tackles the problem of unemployment, and it tackles the problem of fighting different climate disasters, right? So basically, you're putting people to work through a federal jobs guarantee, putting people to work, paying them good paying union jobs, healthcare included, while we still have healthcare. Of course, I'm a proponent of Medicare for all, but while we still have it, making sure that they have healthcare on there. And then giving them jobs to make our infrastructure more green. And that I am a huge, huge advocate of that, because you're hitting two problems at once. I mean, there's literally, it's a great deal. It's a great deal here. And one of the things that I also want to implement are institutions called GIAs, Green Implementation Associations. And the way these would work is similar to small business associations. So small business associations, there's typically a few throughout a state. And what they do is they give job training for anybody who wants to open a small business. They will give out low interest, zero down payment loans for people who want to start businesses, or grants, all these coming from federal dollars. And I want there to be a similar thing for small businesses or workers who want to go into the green space. I want those GIAs to pick up that slack. So if you're a small business that wants to change over and be more green, they can give you low interest, zero down payment loans to do that. They can give you federal grants to do that, and they can retrain your staff in order to make sure that your business is more green. And so that's one of the ways I want to like really bring the Green New Deal into life, is with those GIAs.
Speaking with Imani Oakley, she is running for the United States Congress in New Jersey's 10th district. That is Hudson, Essex, and oh, damn it.
But the cities but what cities are we talking about?
The major cities, I believe. Well, you're close to Newark, but I believe the district is just outside of Newark. And
no, Newark is incled. Half of Newark is included.
Half of Newark.
Half of Newark is included, because why would you want to why wouldn't you want to represent the whole city? Just represent half of what's going on. But you definitely have made a lot of great points, and one of the most important points that we like to emphasize, and this is something that you just mentioned, the ballot line. I have seen it for years. Again, I lived in Monmouth County for a long time. One of the things that is so key to being able to uplift enough people so that way you can unseat an entrenched incumbent is the relationships that you develop with other community leaders. We saw on your website you've had some pretty good endorsements already. I believe a school board member already, if I'm not mistaken. Talk about the importance of building that coalition, especially in an urban area, having the community trust that is so vital to getting people to switch, if you will.
Oh, it is extremely vital. I mean, one of the things that I'm finding when I'm talking to voters is that, they say things that kind of make me feel a little sad. So for example, I was canvassing the other day at a food festival event, and a woman asked me, what was my plan for housing? And she asked what was my plan about the lead issue, so environmental stuff. And I answered her question, and she was like, wow, I'm surprised you actually answered my questions. Usually politicians don't do that. And I was like, the bar is in hell. Like, that is such a low bar. And and I constantly have interactions like that when I'm talking to voters where, I'm just answering their questions and they're just like, you know what? You answered my questions. Like, I'm here for you already. And I'm just like, okay, I respect it. I'm thankful for it. But it's also, it's sad because it shows how little work politicians, especially my opponent, have been doing in this district and he's been in office for nearly 10 years. Decade of that, a decade of not answering people's questions. That makes no sense.
Our person's going on how many years?
Well, our current representative is almost about to hit the 20-year mark and has been in the county for 30 years. So
and doesn't do really anything to serve the community.
This is why, when if people are going to get more strategic about the representatives that you want to take out, there are tons of corporate representatives that they don't have a very big base of support. As much as the big kahuna, if you will, in New Jersey is Frank Pallone. That's a guy who's been there for not only 30 years, but he has all of these relationships that he has built and cultivated, and he would be the toughest incumbent out of anybody in New Jersey to unseat. However, your representative, as you have alluded to, Imani, is basically a do-nothing representative. Doesn't serve the community, is basically just sitting in a cushy job. And on top of everything else, as you alluded to, he is your Matt Gaetz. He is somebody who is only sitting there because his daddy gave him the seat.
I still don't understand how that works. This isn't a monarchy, people.
Some families think it is.
I know.
And so
just
by
bizarre.
Bequeathing that
yes.
seat, it doesn't sound like he actually even worked for it. So he's not hungry to keep it.
No.
But you certainly seem like you are hungry for that seat because you want to represent that community, which is currently not being represented. So when is the primary, and what do you foresee as being the difference in being able to get over the finish line, which I believe is in June? I could be wrong. It is in June. I should know my home state's primary
I was
dates.
going to say.
But what would you say is going to ultimately make the difference for you between now and 10 months from now?
Right. So the election day is June 7th, 2022. So everybody mark your calendars, especially if you are in this district. Come out and vote for us. We are definitely going to need it. But the other thing is what we're going to need is twofold. One, I'm not taking money from corporate PACs or lobbyists or developers. We are taking small dollar donors. So, please, if you have any money to spare, please go to oakleyforcongress.com. That's OAKLEYFOR Congress.com. And if you can drop 20, drop 20. If you can drop 50, drop 50. If you really just have more than that and you can spare, please send it to us.
I always tell people to be monthly donors also.
Yes.
So for people where it seems like that's just undoable to you to give her $50, but maybe you could give her $50 over the course of a campaign, consider being monthly donors and spread the love. And we always promote for people to share it amongst candidates, like sort of spread the love in other places.
And hopefully you could get the attention of Charles Oakley. That would be cute. Or, Oakley sunglasses.
Oh my God.
I'm waiting for Oakley sunglasses.
There you go. That would be a good,
it would be good merch.
Yeah, it would. Hey,
so I just wanted to ask you, Imani, what is your background before you got sucked into this?
Yeah. So fun fact, I started out my political career working for the machine and actually seeing how they operate on the inside. I was like, all right, hell no, like I gotta go. It was really an awful experience. And so like through that experience, I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. Like I actually, started developing really bad headaches. And a friend of mine actually noted to me, it's like, yeah, it's because you clench your jaw all the time. And I was like, oh yeah, that's because I'm like angry.
That's stress.
Yes.
That's stress. Yeah.
So I left and I was just like, I need a solidly left place to work for. Like I'm not playing with like trying, because when I first went in, like some of the folks I worked for, I knew they weren't that left, but I was like, okay, well.
You mean candidates?
No. I mean like elected officials.
Okay.
Officials, yeah, when I first got in. And I was like, well, the problem is they just haven't had anybody to like write them a good policy paper yet. I'm going to be the one. Like, as if nobody thought about that yet. And try to push them left, and it didn't work. And that really upset me because it's like, bro, I have all the data right here. Like I've written like a beautiful step-by-step policy paper for you, and it's still a no. So I was just like, all right, I have to go work for somewhere that's solidly left. And a friend of mine was the lead organizer for New Jersey Working Families. And that's when, they had a job opening for a legislative director. And I applied and got the job. And then that's what was my first like true foray into like really fighting against the machine. And it was excellent. I've been fighting against the machine ever since. So
that's awesome.
Other than that, I've also worked for an organization called Movement School, which teaches folks from marginalized backgrounds to run progressive insurgent campaigns. I have also I actually had my own podcast. It's called Upfront Now, and it was dedicated towards actually exposing the corruption of the machine, as well as talking about different policies in New Jersey that were kind of considered taboo to talk about. So, for example, one of the episodes we had somebody on who used to work for the Hudson County Democratic machine. And she came on and I gave her a platform to talk about like all the sexism she faced in the machine, all the racism that she faced, and just all of the ways in which they were just not going to, be more progressive. And that was like a great episode. I mean, that got a lot of people calling my phone, emailing me, and it really got the truth about the machines out there. Another episode we did was, for a long time in New Jersey, I would say until recent events, it was really taboo to talk about issues surrounding Palestine and the apartheid that's going on. Yeah.
If you know anything about South Florida, that's as hot button as the Cuba
It's the
issue.
third rail.
It sure is.
Yeah. And so, one of the earliest episodes I did on that podcast was I brought different organizers who were organizing with American Muslims for Palestine on to talk about the issue and really like tell folks, this issue, again, they try to make it a pariah the way they try to do with Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, but this is no different than apartheid that happened in South Africa all those years ago, which we all should hopefully agree was very bad. And so, I really felt good about that program because, it was really exposing the machine, and really it was the only like news somewhat show in New Jersey that was really going full throttle on leftist stuff and like exposing the machine in different ways. So I'm very proud of that.
I think we definitely need more non-corporate candidates like yourself who have actually been inside and know how the sausage is made. I think that is absolutely essential. There is a gentleman who I'm sure you're probably familiar with, Maud Harazi, who is running in Connecticut's 1st District. He is somebody who was a legislative assistant for Connecticut.
You look at me like I would have any clue.
No, I think he was for Chris Murphy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I met him like Thursday. I just met him in person.
There you go. So yeah, I think we've got a great opportunity here. We're getting smarter about how we need to attack this, if you will. And so, guys, if you can, at the very least, follow OakleyForCongress.com. Imani is a phenomenal candidate. If you can chip in. But also, if you could sign up for phone banking, text banking, and if you happen to be in the New York metropolitan area and could get to North Jersey and would be interested in canvassing around Seton Hall, for example, we would obviously love to have you help out Imani. She can use all the help she can get. I think this is definitely the type of race that we want to hone in on. So Imani, with that said, we will absolutely 100% have you back. We're going to be doing candidate panels and whatnot
when we
as
get
go
closer.
into 2022.
Yeah.
And we also want to say a big thank you to Kyler Asado, who gave a super chat donation. Just wanted you to know that Imani is amazing. And if we can take down the line with her and some of the lawsuits, that'll be the final boss of party politics. Couldn't have said it better. Thank you so much for coming on this evening.
Thanks, Imani. It was so nice to meet you.
Thanks so much. Have a
You're
good
very
one.
welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. And so there you go. I mean, it seems pretty clear as far as I can see that and she has a really good handle on this stuff. And I think the biggest reason that she does is because she's been inside. Like when you've been inside and you know the lingo and you know what these guys are up to and how they're going to try to trick people, I think it really speaks a great deal to that inside-outside strategy. You do need representatives inside.
Right. Somebody has to actually enact policy.
That's true. And
you know, it's like how would anything happen if there was no sort of policy aspect to it? So I understand that people are frustrated, but somebody has to do that.
Yeah. So we're just waiting on Nick, and we're about to get started with our big discussion this evening. But again, this is the important.
Discussion.
Yeah. Well, it is.
I know.
Huge. Incredible. Funny little story. I went to get my fingerprints done today because I have to. Well, I didn't commit a crime, but I am
that we know of.
Not that you know of. I am looking to get my real estate license. So with that said, it turns out that I was in this very patriotic office, and they were not only Trump supporters, but they wanted me. Like I started doing his voice, and the person who was helping me, she's like, "Oh my God, that's the best Trump impression I've ever heard." Unplugged my microphone last time. Was you doing that? I'm sorry.
Okay,
that
so
won't happen
just
again.
Yeah.
And so she wanted me to call. She was going to call her friend, saying, "I need you to talk to her friend." And she actually hands me the phone. I said, "I just want you to know your friend is really great, really great." She actually thought it was Trump. She was like, "Oh my God, it really is you." I'm like, "No, I played it off like it was really Trump," and had her going for a while.
Thank you, Kyler. That's great. We appreciate that. He said he just started donating.
Kyler, you are the man.
That rocks.
You are the man. Really appreciate
Grassroots
that.
candidates need the love for sure.
Yeah, no, they do. And again, we don't want to, we will platform anybody who's running on a non-corporate platform.
Oh, yeah.
But there are certain candidates where the cream rises to the
Well,
top.
that and people that based on demographics and strategy have a better chance of winning than other people for whatever. I mean, there's a variety of, there's so many variables.
Yeah, no, there is.
There's so many variables that have to come into play, and it creates a perfect storm. And that's how you get somebody like AOC and Cori Bush. It's a perfect storm that has to happen.
But as Imani was alluding to, which is what we've really been emphasizing lately, is that you need to have not just an elected representative. You need to have a whole community of individuals who are involved at the local level, who are holding their representatives' feet to the fire. Remember, a lot of times you have these elected representatives where they are ostensibly not answering to their constituents. Why? Because the ones who are the community advocates currently in certain positions of power, the city council members, the precinct committee leaders, those are still corporate representatives. So even if you are non-corporate, you still have to deal with individuals who want to give into big pharma, want to give into private insurance, want to give into big agriculture, big oil. New Jersey's just a great example of that. So changing that whole thing really does make a difference. It goes without saying that is something that is very, very important. And to me, it's just a matter of time because we are fighting. And the representative, I don't even remember his name. And that's probably a good thing because the name recognition belongs to Imani.
Oh, yeah.
And so to me,
I mean, I do, but I'm not going to.
How much harder do you think that they really want to fight for something that they really aren't fighting for in the first place?
Well, I never understand it when we look around and we see representatives that they don't really use their platform for anything. It's kind of like they've just turned into like policy drones, but that should only really be one aspect of their jobs. I don't generally see them serving the community in any way. And I said this from when we started our campaign that we did service, and we were always a service campaign, but it was so bizarre to me that it was so easy to do that. And yet none of our representatives seem to do that. Like, do you know how easy it would be for a representative to have like a core of volunteers that went around and just did things in the community? It would be so easy. Well, you don't see them ever doing that. All you see is them just bickering and fighting and blaming each other and really only focusing on just the policy aspect of their job.
That is the power of the federal seat that we talk about all the time.
They don't use it.
Imagine if you actually did use it.
Yeah, they don't.
I don't know what the exact calculation would be in terms of numbers, but as far as I can tell, maybe what happens on Capitol Hill is about 25% of the actual impact. It's what happens at the local level in your district. That's like 75% of the stuff.
And we're going to talk about that because somebody just said something about, that we've exhausted all resources in the Democratic Party. And we're not entirely sure about that. We have some things to say about that, but we are by no means.
But all politics is local, lather, rinse, and repeat. We agree, human love, solidarity. So without further ado, a very important conversation about electoral politics in 2021 and beyond. Movement for the People's Party, Zeynab and Nick Brana. Welcome to Generational Change. Nick is blacked out at the moment.
I don't know why. I can see him there.
I can see him there too.
I see him down there, but then I don't see him up there. Hi, Zeynab.
Hey, Z.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
We'll give
Good.
Nick a
How are
moment.
you all doing?
We're doing good. Obviously it's, as we have said, I think that there's a lot of exhaustion after the last 5+ years. And I think a lot of people have kind of, they've been on the Bernie ride. And, obviously this past year and change has been very helter-skelter in terms of, with Trump and everything. And so now we're in a situation where we're trying to figure out, what is the next path? That's, and we'll wait for Nick to come back on.
There he is.
He's back. So let's see if it works now.
There you are.
Hey, Nick.
Hey, folks. Good to see you.
Hi,
Absolutely.
Nick.
And so we understand that there are obviously people who don't want anything to do with electoral politics anymore. We understand there are people who don't want anything to do with the Democratic Party anymore. We know there are people who just don't want to deal with the same brokenheartedness and everything that comes with electoral politics, because you really do need to develop thick skin. It takes a lot of wherewithal to stay with it. That's one of the things, and that's one of the reasons why we think a lot of these movements never actually succeed, is because you take a couple of punches, you get knocked down, and then the next thing you know, all right, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore.
I understand the inclination.
Yeah, well, of course. So we want to obviously hear from you guys, because obviously a lot of people are curious as to where things stand right now, but more so the whole machination of the Democratic Party isn't the answer. So here's why the People's Party is the answer. So the floor is yours, and welcome to Generational Change.
Good to see you guys. And I mean, we've been trying in the Democratic Party for the longest time, and it clearly isn't working. Back in 2016, I worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign. And I think everybody knows, because you introduced it, Zeynab and I are with the People's Party. We're building a major new party that is completely free of corporate money. And the reason that we're doing that is that going back to 2016, I worked on the Bernie Sanders campaign. I was the national political outreach coordinator. I remember after that, we said, we're going to go in, we're going to take over the Democratic Party. Hey, we're going to change their platform. It turned out, in fact, that the platform doesn't matter. The party basically overrides it. We said, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to take over the committee positions, and we're going to elect people to Congress. It turns out that, back then it was, we're going to replace all of Congress. It turns out only a few people make it in. And we've found out more recently that those people who go in actually get co-opted into the establishment, unfortunately. I'm sure we're going to talk more about that, because we've done some actions around that in New York City at AOC's office recently. We tried getting a chair elected inside the Democratic Party, Keith Ellison. Turns out the superdelegates, the DNC members, vote for that. The members have nothing to say about that. We tried replacing Pelosi. The Democrats threatened to put in someone who was even worse. And so thing after thing after thing we've tried inside the Democratic Party. And really, this story has been decades long. It took the Democratic Party to dismantle the New Deal. And so that's why we're here. Biden pushing him to the left. We've all seen how that's turned out. In fact, he's pulling the squad members to the right. And so that's why what we need is a major new party that's free of corporate money. And I'm sure Zeynab has a lot to add to that.
Well, I started out in the movement with Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats. And the idea was to, we were going to reshape Congress, and with Justice Democrats, we were going to reform the Democratic Party, and with Brand New Congress, there's an idea of running a new slate of people. The idea, I believe, they had some noble intention behind it, but in actuality, what I ended up seeing over and over and over again were barriers that were put up by the system, you know, Republicans and Democrats. Republicans were less covert. The Democratic Party is very covert in what they do to races and how they suppress primaries and how they will support a Republican. The party establishment will support a Republican candidate over a progressive Democrat who does not take corporate money. And this is one of the reasons that I believe that we have to get outside of the movement. Not only that, but, you know, when people get in office, they're told things like, this is the long haul. This is the long game. We have to take short strides. We have to get small wins where we can. They are always pushed to stop direct action. They're always pushed to change and become more reflective of the Democratic establishment party. And once you get into those circles, it's hard and it's extremely challenging not to have that weight on you. And that's one reason it's really important for people to push them. But I believe that that's one reason that we need a new political party, a new major party that will push representatives, that will have different representation. We were never established as a country to be a duopoly in the first place. Not to say our forefathers had it right in any way, but we weren't meant to be a duopoly. We're still not meant to be. The most successful countries that we see have multiple parties. The fact that we only have two choices is one thing that frustrates the majority of Americans. And I believe it's only, 3% of Americans that trust our government. So it's something like 92% in almost all polls, anywhere from the high 80s to 90s, that do not trust our representatives, that do not trust politicians, that do not trust the political parties. And there's a reason for that. It's because both parties have made promises. I have seen legislation come across state house desks, federal desks, you know, ALEC legislation, that in the back rooms, you know, the parties act like they agree in the front. In the back rooms, they're pushing for the same exact legislation. And the tweaks that they have to it are small because their donors are the same. And that's what we have to change. And having a few voices in for the Democratic Party that are always going to be pushed against by that party is going to be difficult. And it's an uphill battle. And that's why we need another choice. We need another party. We can't just focus on reforming one. We have to try to build another. And people say, the deck stacked against you. The parties have created a situation where they don't, you know, it's going to be an uphill battle. There's going to be a road to hoe. Does that mean we don't try and we don't challenge that and we don't push to make a change because they have set up a system that keeps them in power? The only way that we change power is by getting out, organizing, showing up, and pushing the system forward.
You know, you bring up a really great point, which is something that we discussed last week with Sharif Snuggs, a mutual friend, was the lead organizer for the Marches for Medicare for All. And he says that you got to bring street heat. In a way, the inside-outside strategy, which is something that we emphasize very strongly, on the one hand, it is a good idea to have multiple parties, but at the same time, regardless of who is an elected official and regardless of which party that is in, nothing is going to change unless there is outside heat. If you just alluded to the idea that we have to build this strong movement, we would like to know where things currently stand, because we did, you know, obviously participate, and we weren't speakers, but, you know, we watched the summit at the end of last year. We saw Nina Turner, we saw Marianne Williamson, we saw Dr. West, we saw Chris Hedges. You know, obviously that was a really great turnout and a lot of people showed up. So where are things now 8 months later in regards to the current infrastructure of the party, where you guys stand, you know, let's say state to state, ballot access is obviously key. And then ultimately where you stand with potentially fielding candidates. I know it's a lot to get out, but
just where are you right now?
Yeah. Yes. So now we're in the process, because in the United States, the two parties have tried to make this as difficult as possible, obviously. And so that means that getting ballot access and forming a political party nationally is a state-by-state process. And so states, there's about 8-9 states that are now registered. We've almost achieved ballot access in our first state. There's other states that are getting organized. We have almost every state. We have organizers in that are working towards forming state committees that are organizing towards bringing people in. We're organizing We hold weekly and biweekly calls in every state, just about. And so we're in the process of bringing people in and building those state parties. And we believe that organizing and actions are really critical to doing that and to bringing people in. And we plan on running congressional candidates in 2022. We plan on running, also building up, getting ballot access nationally, and running a presidential candidate in 2024. Because this is we think that nothing else is going to change this country, essentially, other than building a major new corporate free party. For example, in 2017, the way that we started off as Draft Bernie for a People's Party. It began with a viral article that I wrote in the Huffington Post about how Bernie could help start a major new party in this country, which is what 2 out of every 3 Americans now want. And the response to that article was tremendous. And we gathered more than 50,000 signatures for Bernie Sanders to come join us. And in fact, had Bernie accepted our invitation then, had he run against Donald Trump and Joe Biden, 2 of the most disliked politicians in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of a depression, I think that Bernie Sanders would be president right now. And we would have a major new People's Party across the country. And we're running out of election cycles where we get to make that mistake. You know, we really don't have time anymore. There's people even in the mainstream politics talking about how we are going to get a even worse Donald Trump in just a few years, because this cycle, it's not even incremental.
His name is Ron DeSantis. His name is Ron DeSantis. And yeah, that's what you're looking at. And I wanted to go back to what you said about that. Yeah, it was originally the idea was Draft Bernie, because who else had that level of, you know, platform and recognition, and who else could be that? But so now, since that's not the case, where do you stand in terms of like having who would be at the forefront of this? Like, who is the person that you would say would be your, you know, flagship person? You know, like where are you headed in that direction?
If I could answer that, Nick.
Yeah.
We are.
Certainly.
We are. One of the values that we bring to the table is that, you know, we need more bullhorns and less heroes. Congressional candidates are important, district, local, changing it at every single level. What will build up this movement is action and organizing over the next 2 years, so that whoever runs on that platform will bring legitimacy. Empowering people is what brings legitimacy, will bring the wake, will bring the voters, will bring the attention. Of course, we do want to have someone who's strong and someone who has been in the movement and someone who's been fighting. But ultimately, what we're doing at the People's Party is we are blending direct action, just like what we did at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's office, where we called on the squad to do the same thing. We called on them, use your huge Twitter following, you know, 12 million people follow you guys. Use that to bring people out, to organize, to push this current electorate, and to build something new, because you know what, we can't wait. I know we saw Feeney and Compton Jay on your all show. They said something very similar. We can't wait. There's no waiting 2 or 3 years, 4 or 5 years. I mean, I grew up in poverty my whole life. You know, I've rarely had health insurance. I've been houseless. I've, you know, seen my father, who is a Black Iranian, go through racism. I have lived through being on the 9/11 watch list as somebody who has a Persian last name. And so there is no waiting, especially COVID has ramped up what was already there, right? As far as inequities and as far as the pain points that the American public are feeling. So we have to get out in the streets. We have to organize thoughtfully right now. I know they mentioned a general strike, some sort of direct action like that, which I support. And that's what the People Party wants, to blend electoral politics with action, to put the power in the hands of the people, so that when we do get those elected officials, there's a movement behind them. And Jen, I know you talk about this a lot with generational change and the direct action work that you were doing on the ground in your community. It's a similar concept. We have to build up in our own communities and do things for people that are hurting right now, while also coupling that with electoral politics. And that's really the vision that a party should have. electoral politics is only one part of it. It's an important part, but it's only one.
Yep, and that's a very good point. And Kyler Asada, who's a great supporter of the show, brings up a really great point.
Well, that's what we do because that's where we are. We're in Florida right now. There's two parties. We have no other option.
Yeah,
so that is the option right
limitations
there.
in
It
terms
is what
of
it
access
is.
and all that is a very big problem. So why not, if we are doing a third party, and currently it takes a long time to build that infrastructure, get the ballot access, get people excited about joining that contingency. I think there's still something to be said for the importance of electing non-corporate representatives. Now, the way we look at it, which is something that I'm not too sure too many are obviously following in terms of strategy, is the way that the Tea Party was able to systematically take over the GOP, which is not just elect representatives, but also to elect school board members, city council members, precinct committee captains. Like, the local component is so very important. And so one of the things that we have noticed is that there's really no synergy, at least at this point, it doesn't seem like there is, between those individuals who want to be part of the third party movement and those who want to fight within the Democratic Party. I think there needs to be sort of an understanding amongst both movements that it's cool if you want to fight on that side. It's cool if you want to fight on that side. But as long as we recognize that electing non-corporate representatives at the end of the day who are actually going to fight, as you alluded to, Zeynab, is really the key to how we are able to move forward, along with the street heat that we had talked about before. So what do you guys think about that?
I think what happens to the non-corporate candidates when they go into the Democratic Party and they get elected? Look at the members of the squad. The members of the squad end up voted for Pelosi. First vote that AOC and other members of the squad took when they got to Congress was they voted to affirm Pelosi's speakership. Again, they voted for her just a few months ago. When they had an opportunity, there was a force to vote push, which we were a part of. We helped organize that. And that was actually saying, wow, now at this point, there's lots of progressives that say, well, we just don't have the numbers. Well, that's not true anymore. They have the numbers. They have the numbers in Congress. They make up the difference in the House, and they also make up the difference in the Senate, because Bernie Sanders has as many votes as Joe Manchin. So he can demand as well. If Manchin is saying that we need to bring unemployment insurance, as he was during the COVID relief negotiations, from 400 down to 300, Bernie can say, the hell with that. We're going to bring it to 600. He can say, we're going to give that full $2,000 stimulus, and I'm not voting for anything less. But they're not doing that. He's not doing that. The squad's not doing that. They refused to demand anything when they voted for Pelosi, when they gave their votes for that. And the bar was set on the floor. It was, give us a floor vote on Medicare for all. And it was AOC herself who drew that line and said months before, it wasn't even a year before that, who said that the Democratic Party is not a left party. We don't have a left party in this country. The Democratic Party is a right party or a center conservative party. And the way that you know that is we can't even get a floor vote on Medicare for all. And then since then, you've seen that pattern. Some people thought, oh, well, maybe it's an aberration. Maybe it's an aberration of what happens to progressives who go into the Democratic Party. Well, since then, we saw the same thing play out in the $15 minimum wage fight. We saw the same thing play out when they gave Biden left credibility and cover during his 100 days. They said he's exceeded expectations. He gets an A+, he gets 100%. We saw the same thing when AOC donated to this very same people that she said 2 years ago that she was going into primary. The same thing. She's donating to corporate Democrats now who she would have been challenging, who are against Medicare for all. So that's what happens to progressives that go inside the Democratic Party. And that's part of the reason that we're going backwards in that party. Incrementalism is too kind to describe what happens inside the Democratic Party, because we had Hillary Clinton offering to lower the age of Medicare to 55 or 50, and Joe Biden is saying, I'm going to veto Medicare for all, and we'll bring it down to 50. And by the way, we're going to put it inside the reconciliation bill, which means it's dead on arrival, and the squad's all co-signing that.
All right. Well, I'm going to push back on that. And a great question from Renee Johnston. Can you ask for the specific states where there is ballot access, where they are able to be listed on the ballot as of today? So one of the main arguments, which I think is a valid one, when it comes to the pushback on the third party movement versus still trying to fight within the Democratic Party, is the whole concept of infrastructure. We talk about we can't wait. There is no time for incrementalism. And the idea of building an infrastructure for a whole new party as far as I can tell, that's more incrementalism, because that takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to build up a coalition and excitement, if you will, about this whole idea we're going to rush into this new party. And unless there's a consensus, as we like to talk about, you see, we believe that any type of third party movement, or as Jen likes to say, an actual second party.
Right. Well, that's the thing.
You know,
I would argue we don't have two parties. We don't have a labor party.
We're completely co-opted by management now.
Yeah.
We need a party of labor.
We need a labor party.
So if there is an actual labor movement that is pushing for, let's say, another option, I think that is really the essence of how we're able to get there. But we are curious because, again, where are you currently in terms of ballot access as of today?
Where can people support?
Because again, those who would say, let's fight within the Democratic Party, because it's going to take a heck of a lot longer to build that infrastructure for a third party. Either one who wants to jump in.
Dana, do you want to take that?
Yeah,
People
sure.
can. So as I mentioned before, just very quickly to the question was, as I said, we don't have ballot access in any state yet. We're working on that, but you can register in a number of different states already, including California, Colorado, Maine, many different states already. And we're organizing to actually get ballot access in many other states.
Okay. So that makes sense. But for certain states, like for us in Florida, we're closed primaries. So for somebody in Florida to register as anything other than a Democrat or Republican, you really don't get to vote in a primary. Like you really get no say-so in anything, just because that's just what you're given and that's just the option. So, I would love to see like there not just be those two choices. I'd like to see the Democrats actually be a labor party. I'd like a lot of things. But right now, like Florida is slow. Well, that's the thing. We're going to be the last state. We'll be underwater. I actually believe we'll be underwater before we'll have open elections, ranked choice voting, or fair primaries here. That's my personal thought. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Florida is one of those states that's going to need massive movements from other states before we are actually able to get where we need to go. And the party infrastructures down here are just so stagnant. But even if we wanted to, the type of hoops that you have to jump through, even if you wanted to be a member voting of other, conglomerates, whether it was the Green Party, for example,
even if it's libertarian, if it's anything that's just on the ballot, it doesn't matter.
And so the other thing to consider is it's not just electing congressional representatives or Senate members. There's the judges, there's municipal elections that are so very important. Now, when you talk about the movement for a third party and the idea that you're going to run candidates, there's two rules of thought that I thought of that I think is very important here. And this is where I stand, because I still think fighting within the Democratic Party in the short term is still the best way to go. But if you are building a third party movement, there are so many open races in regards to no party affiliation, like city council, county commission, races like that. And then also there are tons of races all throughout the country in which seats are not even challenged. It's a red seat, it's a blue seat, and there is no second party that is actually challenging them. So have you given much thought in terms of that particular strategy, in terms of building that foundation? Like, we're going to target these seats that make a lot of sense because they aren't being challenged and because you don't necessarily need to be affiliated with one of the two major parties, but you could have the banner, if you will, of the MPP. What do you guys think about that?
I think local races are really important. I think growing out support for local races are going to be critical, as you had mentioned. And there are places where, we talk about closed primaries, but there are many states that we can also potentially, folks can run as independent. I always like to point that out. Can't run as a People's Party candidate right now because we're working on the ballot access. Run independent. You don't have to run as a Democrat or a Republican. And I know some states it's more difficult to run independent, but the majority of Americans are now registered literally as independent voters. The majority of Americans have fled the voter rolls of both parties. And so I think that it's also folks taking the initiative to run and think outside of the box when it comes to that, as we're working through all the bureaucracy and red tape to build a party. But then that also goes back to the organizing aspect. I think that as we move along, we have to continue to push the current elected representation that we have to do better
Oh, yes.
and to do the right thing. You know, after we showed up at AOC's office, what was it? It was 4 days later, they showed up at the steps of the Capitol building, calling for you know, something that I know Cori Bush is very passionate about, which is keeping folks housed. However, what's unfortunate about that is there's still 1.1 million people that are not covered by Biden's Band-Aid solution, but yet that was considered a triumph. That was considered, you know, a win, and it was celebrated.
Yeah.
And that's what made me sad on my end, because I was like, man, it's like we could have stayed out. We could have stayed out there a little bit longer. If they caved on this, we could push instead of calling it a win. You know, at that point, it's not a win. We got to stop calling breadcrumbs that these people that are sitting in the House and the Senate and in our legislative houses and the state houses, when they give us breadcrumbs, we got to stop calling it a win, and we got to start calling it what it is. It's a breadcrumb. Fix the real issue. Cori Bush had a resolution for housing as a human right. And I barely heard it spoken about when I was there. There were people circulating like, we're just here to extend the moratorium. We're not here to talk about that bill or that resolution. That's disappointing to me, man.
Yeah.
Housing human rights, she literally released that resolution the same day that she called for this, you know. So why not push for housing as a human right? Because any person, the 600,000 every day that are houseless, before the pandemic, housing security was a major issue. The only thing that this covers in most states, people have to prove that the reason they're about to be houseless is because of the pandemic. But as we know,
there's so many loopholes around it. And you know, our friend Jordan Charrington did a whole thing about like basically looking into all these loopholes. People are being evicted the whole time. Yeah. So, I mean, this is nothing that's surprising and nothing new. And it's a huge problem. And I agree. I think that there's a lot of disappointment to be had in people in terms of not just policy, but that they don't use their platform and they don't make a big deal out of stuff and they don't do the things that need to be done more often. And it is disappointing. And I wish I knew I don't think it's one answer as to why. I think there's probably a variety of answers, but it's definitely disappointing. And I totally share in the frustration. I wanted to ask you guys something, just going over your platform and looking at it. Is there a reason in particular that you guys don't address reparations on your platform?
We adopted Bernie's platform essentially in 2016, and we picked that up. We made very few changes to it, and it was voted on by our membership in 2018. But I think that most of us in the movement, in my experience, including myself, do support reparations.
Right.
So
right. That's why I was asking. That's why I was asking, because I know that I have heard people talk about it, but that's why I was surprised that it's not there. And I'm just, and the only reason to me that it's noticeable is that you talk Indigenous, LGBT, you know, veteran, I mean, everybody. So I was just curious, like, why is that something that people shy away from? I guess I never really understood that.
That would be why.
Yeah.
And also, we are planning a platform committee, and we're planning a platform process with our membership to actually determine the party platform, the full party platform, ahead of the founding convention that we're going to be having. And so that is when we will be recreating the platform, adding to what we have, changing what we have. And that's where the membership will be deciding exactly what is on it. And
you haven't really created one from scratch yet. That's what you're saying. Like you just sort of took
Exactly.
So you haven't, So this wasn't like you sat down and had the well thought out, putting it together. You're waiting to put it together from voting from members. That's
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. So you just,
it.
Okay. So you took Bernie's as just like, these are the core principles. This is what we're about. This is what we believe in, but you will make it your own.
This is the starting point. This is what had unified people in 2016 as a movement. Absolutely. But in some respects, not just reparations, we think that we need to go further.
Right. Well, there could definitely be some more specific stuff like, you know, and it's hard to do that. It's hard to be specific on a platform because really, you know, who knows down the road what policy is going to come up, and you do make compromises and not everything is exactly in stone how you would enact it. But just to get the core principles down is really the key thing. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the idea that you're going to ask everybody for input as to what that should be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The membership will decide it.
Okay, because we have heard that there has been some issues with volunteers in the organization. A lot of people have quit. Obviously, there was a big thing a few months back. Has that been rectified to this point as far as you're concerned, or is that still something you guys are working on?
And can I preface this with, I have no idea what he's talking about. Thank you. Go on. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, if Zeynab, if you want to add to this afterwards, but volunteers, we're asking for a process by which they could participate in the formation and the deliberation of the national party rules and bylaws. And that's exactly the process that we are actually engaged in right now. States are electing 2 representatives each, sending them to a national organizing committee where we will be coming together in a matter of a few weeks, and we will be actually doing just that. We will be deciding what the national charter and the national bylaws are going to be. So we will be deliberating all kinds of things about how the national party should be structured.
That's awesome. It's the birth of a party. I've been to the birth of a Nordstrom, and this is a lot cooler. I'll tell you.
I'm going to. I'm going to share my.
To add to that, our National Organizing Council. I'm sorry, I think there's a delay. Were you going to ask a question, Peter? I apologize.
No, you go first.
No. Go ahead. He's keeping notes of where certain things are said. So when he goes and looks for timestamps later, it'll be easier for him.
It definitely makes it easier.
Go on. That's what he's doing. He's like, oh, she said this. So that way it just
saves me a lot of time because I do the editing as well.
Don't mind him.
One of the things about the National Council with the National Organizing Committee is we did take a vote on the structure of it with our entire membership. So not just the active volunteers that are there, who are very important, but also the folks who signed up to donate, the folks who support us, the folks who can only make a couple of tweets about the organization a month, but that's all that they can do. The people who are organizing on the ground, the people who helped organize the Medicare for All marches, through the People's Party in conjunction with other direct actions that we've helped to assist with, the folks who have been with the party since the beginning, who have been following in and support it. So that larger vote, that membership, all those people being involved are the voices. And so when we talk about bringing voices to the table, we're talking about those folks as well. And we're also talking about making sure that there are people at the table from every state, if possible, to represent. And as we're building our national committee, we're looking to, through the party, full elections for the national committee, as well as we have an interim chair election coming up that we're about to announce. And then we'll of course, be having a permanent chair election as well as an election for the entire national committee. And that's where, like we had said, that there's going to be a broad range of voices there that are elected by their communities that will be able to build our platform. And I second what Nick said about reparations. I support it. I know that through the movement itself, there are many different versions, and reparations isn't a blanket term.
No, I know. We have somebody in the comments saying,
a lot of different organizations.
Yeah, we have someone in the comments saying, do they support cash payments for reparations? And I feel like saying, well, look, we just got an answer. They're building a platform and that will be voted on. And I'm sure that will be addressed. So to ask them that, I mean, it's kind of like, it's a moot point to ask them what they personally think. It's more of an issue what becomes the platform. So I think that you would have to just wait and see. But I support that. So
reparations to me is an actual infrastructural,
it's a whole bunch
financial
of things.
Investment by the banking system in communities that have been neglected for generations.
It's so many things. You can't get into it. It's so many things. It's tax codes. It's direct payments.
That's one of the general.
It's a song and a dance. But anyway.
But the issue that I really wanted to touch upon, because as I was saying before, I still think the only way that your organization is going to grow is if there is some type of an agreement, whatever that looks like. I can't say specifically, but there has to be some type of an understanding amongst the people who want to fight for the third party and the people who want to continue fighting within the Democratic Party. The movement is not big enough where we literally could be at each other's throats about which strategy is the right strategy.
They're both fine.
And that to me leads to Nina Turner. And the fact that she not only lost that race, which I think could have easily been avoided if there had been a massive movement on the progressive left, regardless of whether you were fighting for a third party or fighting within the Democratic Party. I think the fact that she was the keynote speaker at the Movement for a People's Party Summit really spoke a lot about the way that she was willing to put herself out there. And then what we had noticed over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 months of the election, there were people who were really at her throat that she wasn't doing enough, that she wouldn't show up to a Medicare for All march, that her ad for Medicare for All in Cleveland and Akron was not enough. And then ultimately, it didn't seem like there was enough of a movement that was actively trying to help her get elected, whether it was through phone banking, text banking, or even sending people to Cleveland and Akron to knock on doors for her. As far as I can tell, she really put herself out there for you guys. And it seemed like she really didn't get a lot in return when it was all said and done. You know, we did get to Cleveland, and it just didn't feel like there was enough of the movement there that really wanted to help her get elected. And I do think, especially if she chooses to run again in April, that recognizing that working together to elect somebody who is going to fight for the common good, even if she isn't going to give you everything all that you're looking for, is going to do exponentially better in terms of building credibility for a third party movement rather than not being involved in that capacity. We'd love to hear what you guys think about that, because we definitely think that Nina, regardless of whether it's in the Democratic Party or not, is one of the true leaders of the non-corporate progressive movement.
Well, Nina Turner was a keynote speaker at the People's Convention, as you say, and have lots of respect for Nina Turner. We didn't have ballot access in Ohio. So she had to run as a Democrat. We also, I think there's a lot of people out there who are skeptical about whether change can happen in the Democratic Party, as we've been saying, because of what they've seen over the last several months. And that's not the People's Party's fault. I mean, there was you probably saw soon at the day after Nina's race, we actually went trending with more than 27,000 tweets. And the reason is that Emma Vigeland came out and attacked us and tried to say that we had somehow cost Nina Turner the election. And the movement found that such a laughably ridiculous argument.
Oh, it was ridiculous, Nick, because
tweets
what really cost her the election
the
was
People's
me.
Party.
Okay, no, I was going to tell you what really cost her the election was me, because I suggested that it wouldn't be a good idea for her to be part of a Assange telethon during her campaign. And apparently that is why Nina lost. So do not take all the credit for that, because I know that I apparently have so much power. So.
Exactly. And Susan Sarandon cost Hillary Clinton that election.
Hey, don't mess with Susan Sarandon.
It's all Jill Stein's fault.
We have so much power, those of us who are fighting to build something completely outside, completely marginalized, outside of the power structures. And yet we have the ability to, this is an amazing extension of the spoiler effect. We can spoil a race that we weren't even in. Unbelievable.
Right. No, and I think that there is something to be said for people getting behind a candidate that is a non-corporate candidate who has been supportive of third parties. That's definitely better than what the alternative was in that race. I mean, for sure that was the better option. And I just, the infighting is unfortunate, but yeah, I understand people.
We did show support. Oh, not to interrupt, Jen.
Oh, no, I don't even know. That's what I'm saying to him. I don't know that. That's why I know nothing about what he was talking about. It's unfortunate, and I wish we weren't stuck like how we feel stuck down here. I mean, I am by no means a fan of the Democratic Party. I dem exited in 2016. I have very little appreciation, if any, for really anybody in there. Unfortunately for me, I live in Florida. So my options are slim to none. That's just the way it is, or we get no vote. And so I'm stuck, but I have no love for that party.
And I do think that and again, I think that this is very important, and I am going to push you guys a little on this. I really do think that there is an important factor here going forward, because it didn't seem like there was an active push to help Nina get elected. That doesn't mean that you're the reason that she lost. Don't misconstrue. I can't stand when people say things like that, and everybody likes to dunk. Everybody likes to punch down. It is so disgusting. That happens all the time. That is not the answer. But I really do think that the credibility of the Movement for a People's Party is going to go up if there is that consensus of, all right, look, it's going to take time for us to build this infrastructure. It's not going to happen overnight. And no matter how much people are struggling, there's not enough people in the streets right now who are fighting to change that. We need to have a march on Washington, as far as I'm concerned. 1 million people need to be in that freaking city. Just like they want to ignore the 10 cities that are there, there needs to be hundreds of thousands of people in that city telling people we need our freaking health care, we need a Green New Deal, we need a living wage, we need housing. Enough with this BS. And so to me, it has to be front and center. That's the only reason why I think Wolf Blitzer ever addressed Nancy Pelosi, is because he saw it in front of him and he didn't know how to not acknowledge what was going on. But I still believe that this meeting of the mind, so to speak, is the only way that we're ever going to get anywhere. It is so vitally important that we recognize that, just like Imani Oakley, who came on our podcast before, she may be running the Democratic Party, but my goodness, if she isn't a great candidate. Right. And when you consider the person who's representing that area right now, that family's been entrenched there for, I believe, over 40 years. So there is something to be said for fighting the good fight right now until there is that infrastructure in place. So that way you will have the opportunity to field strong candidates, have strong fundraising, and be able to make that impact. That's where I stand. And that's why I think, even though we are fighting with the Democratic Party, we are not opposed to what you guys are doing at all. We do think, though, that in terms of strategy, that is something that needs to be considered. And we'd really love to hear what your thought is on that.
So and first, stop saying we. I can talk for myself.
You don't want to hear.
No, but he says we, like we're of one mind. No, but I do agree. Like, we are very supportive. I've always been supportive. Third parties in general. I'm supportive of what you guys are doing. I'm supportive of anything that's trying to help people. So that's really what I want to do. So yeah, we're not being averse at all.
Well, I believe that. Well, what we need to do, we need to be united on the issues. The issue's not, oh, this person doesn't take corporate money, or, oh, they're labeled as progressives. I think that we need to be united on the issues. One thing the People's Party will do, and we've all agreed, is something that we should do as a party, is hold our own people accountable once they get into office. Hold them accountable. And so what we need to be united on isn't necessarily behind reforming the Democratic Party, a third party. I believe that a third party is the way to go, because we've seen what happens when trying to reform the Democratic Party. It's that people are sliding on the issues that matter. Pramila Jayapal released a Medicare for All bill, and she's been running on this, for 6 years. And she did this before, and then she was back on Justice Democrat slate after she broke our promises in an entire election cycle. What we have to be behind are the policies, and that's why we need to organize, and we do need to get out there, and we do need to have an eventual general strike. We do need to push at the Capitol steps. We do need to march for Medicare for All, and we need these candidates and these folks to show up for these and to not be sort of towing the line to get elected as politicians, but are really fighting for the issues that matter, because we don't have tomorrow to wait for. I mean, we've seen our revolutionists change their mantra to more of an incrementalist state. Other organizations that I've worked with have moved more toward incrementalism.
Yes, of course. Everybody gets co-opted.
Over and over again.
I don't know. I forgot the gentleman's name, but I heard Jordan interview him when we were in Cleveland, and I was
my God.
Oh my God.
What was that? Was that the Justice
Gavarganese, he's the head of our revolution.
I thought it was a joke. I thought it was like a Saturday Night Live skit.
He could have been the spokesperson for the DNC. That's how he sounded.
That's right. I helped start that organization, and it's a very sad fate and emblematic of what Zeynab was saying about what happens, and what you guys were saying about what happens if progressives that go in there. They dropped Medicare for All and the Green New Deal. And they said, we're just going to push for what Biden has. So that's the recipe for really getting nothing, as we've seen. But I want to answer what you were saying, Peter. And that is, there are hundreds of organizations that are dedicated to reforming the Democratic Party in one way or another, or supporting progressive candidates who run inside the Democratic Party. What there isn't is that level of resources, the level towards building a major new party. And so the marginal returns of actually helping to support build a new party, some people try to do this apples to apples comparison about, starting a new party versus reforming the Democratic Party. There are an inordinately greater amount of resources, orders of magnitude greater resources going into reforming the Democratic Party. And yet look at what we've been able to do with few resources, with much fewer, for example, doing that action at AOC's office, which was able to, after that, there were 7 pages of Google results saying that Susan Sarandon and others go to AOC's office and protest her for not fighting for Medicare for all. And one of our demands was, as Zeynab said, that we need you to start using your social media, your ability to get press, and your celebrity to take direct action. They could have taken direct action over the past few years. They could have taken direct action over the past months, several months. There's no lack of issues that they could have fought for. $15 minimum wage, Medicare for all, the COVID stimulus. And yet it was days after we did that, and they saw press clippings for a week saying that you're being called out by people going to your office with your constituents, where your own constituents are speaking and saying what you're doing, you are not fighting for us, you're not fighting hard enough. And days later, they were at the steps of Congress. That's the power of direct action. And then days later after that, there was an eviction moratorium, even as imperfect as that was. And so what my question is, why would you ever leave the steps of the Capitol if that's what works? Why wouldn't you stay there and continue to fight, push for full housing as a human right, push for actual rent forgiveness, push for Medicare for all, stay there until we get actual change in this country?
I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. I think that, we've said it the whole time, like it isn't so much the policy, it's the using your platform and taking the action. And we talk about that. And we had, who was it that we were talking about? Angelica Duenas,
yes,
who is a candidate out in California. And we were talking with her, and she, her whole plan is to use her office as a staging center for all of these actions. She's like, if I got elected to Congress, my congressional office would be that place where everybody could, organizers can meet. They don't view themselves as part of the outside strategy anymore. It's almost like you get in and now you're just some sort of policy drone that has to make deals, and they just completely forego their role on the outside of that.
But this is why having an outside strategy is a very important part of the process. And with that said, and we do want to get Roger Meadows, another huge supporter of the show. We love Roger.
Until we got to ask the question.
Nick, if MPP is supposed to be left of the squad, Bernie, why are you pushing Medicare for all and lower drugs instead of advocating for nationalization of both industries, Cuban style?
Oh, now you're saying because they're left that you want to say that they're.
We're not trying to do a cloak and dagger flag America.
Seriously,
we love you, Roger, but
we do. And plus, let's not say. What does Cuban style mean? You're talking about socialized medicine. You're talking about
there's a level
government run versus government funded.
There's a huge difference between the two. And that is also a huge talking point. And so if you want to address it, that's great. I understand if there's really not much to say. You're not going to, the United States is not becoming a communist
country. Just not there. So but if you want to answer him.
Well, personally, I think that a national health system, the kind that the UK has, is better than even Medicare for all. And so Medicare for all is already the compromise.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah. The big difference, of course, is there's
a few different types of systems. Yeah, I think, we're smart enough to figure it out. That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point. This is what perplexes me. It can be done, people.
There's one overarching issue when it comes to universal health care, and only one. You do not need for-profit middlemen in between you and your doctor.
It needs to not be a
value
profit
whatsoever to the healthcare industry whatsoever. When you hear conservatives say, what does the government do well? I'll give you an answer. They fund Medicare, the most popular healthcare program in the United States, for 55 years and counting. I ask you, what does private insurance do well? They don't do anything well. They rip you off.
That's right. What do they do well? What do they do well?
There is no value. And so
nothing.
If the consensus is, and we had Carol Roth, who wrote The War on Small Business recently, and she's on the conservative right, and she tried to twist it into government run versus government funded. That is not what it is. We know what we're trying to do here. We are trying to eliminate the for-profit middlemen.
It's not complicated.
That's
people.
It's
not really complicated.
So I think that is an issue that I think we all agree on. It is a unifying issue, solidarity issue, all through and through.
Well, I think that the thing was, and I was close to asking her, speaking about Carol, and I didn't, because why? But the bottom line is that they don't believe that healthcare is a human right. They're okay with it being commodified. And that was the gist of that conversation. And that was where I said, you're talking about means of getting people affordable healthcare. That's not a discussion we need to have. We just need to give people healthcare. So she
Which
was
is why
already
it-
talking about the
yeah.
commodification of it in a way that I didn't agree
And
with
that's
anyway.
why, and that's why, Nick, you are right. Medicare for all is the compromise because
Exactly.
you're still allowing the free market to determine a doctor's ability to make money.
Right.
So the idea that you think that for-profit middlemen still need to exist, there is no point to that. But you have to recognize where the country is. And
So
I think
I don't know
Medicare
if we
for all
answered
is
the
absolutely
question, but
attainable.
that's what I
think
think.
so.
All right,
I think
whatever.
we did. Now, obviously, as you know, and Zeynab, you know this as well as anybody, running for office costs a lot of money. And especially if you want to obtain a seat at the federal level, it takes a boatload of money and a boatload of influence and all that jazz. So where does the Movement for a People's Party currently stand in terms of fundraising? As Nick, as you alluded to, you are looking to run candidates in 2022. I don't think you were specific in terms of what offices they would be seeking, if it's going to be a local situation, if it's going to be for Congress, that type of thing. So if you guys can just update the audience in regards to where you stand right now, obviously we would love to hear about that.
It's a tandem issue, right? Campaigns do take money, but in 2018, if you want to take a look back at Lindsey Fagan's race, in Texas, or you want to take a look at Rick Trevino, who ran in the largest district in the country and raised $70,000, and he went into a runoff with Gina Ortiz Jones, who raised like $4 million. And so what we found with some of those candidates, and those aren't necessarily outliers. Eva Putsova, I know you guys know Eva.
We love Eva.
Yeah. She ran an amazing race. And so when we look at funds, it's balancing and understanding that, yes, we have to have money to have printables. We have to have money to have advertising. We have to have cash flow for campaigns. But some of the most important aspects of running and winning a race is getting the issues to the people. So getting out on the ground, having a ground game. We know this last time that was difficult with
yeah.
COVID-19.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It changed everything.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't. That's your bread and butter as a grassroots campaign. Losing your ground game is deadly. I mean, that's basically, it's a game changer.
We had to deal with that against Wasserman Schultz. Unfortunately, that is
Right.
it makes all the difference in the world.
And that's not the only thing, but it's certainly for grassroots campaigns
yes.
to not be able to canvass is a huge loss.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and especially when you're going up against big money. But in regards to where you guys currently stand, is it consistent? Are you guys doing a decent job? Is there really a lot of enthusiasm? Because I would imagine most of this is public record. I mean, I haven't looked it up, so I can't tell you what it is. But being able to have consistent fundraising is key to building that infrastructure. It is reality. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars, but obviously having that infrastructure so that way candidates can at least have some form of a ground game if they are going to run is also going to be important. So if that's something that you guys could touch on in regards to how things are going right now, and obviously things need to improve, so on and so forth.
Well, we are increasing what we're raising all the time. And we have new people joining us all the time. We're already out raising, for example, as of just a few months ago, we're out raising the National Green Party. And so that is having formed the party less than a year ago, having actually begun incorporating state parties, actually begun registering state parties. I think that's a pretty big achievement. And I think that bodes very well.
Yeah.
I think if there is going to be a successful third-party movement, I think that there also needs to be sort of a coalescing, if you will, with the other third parties that exist, whether it is green, perhaps even people who see themselves more on like the libertarian side, but aren't libertarian right. They may be libertarian left, and that's something that is fairly common, believe it or not. And so I do think that expanding that, platform, I think, is also very important. We're of the mind that the Green Party, with all due respect, they blew their shot. In the 2020 election, they had the opportunity to put Jesse Ventura on the ballot as their presidential candidate. And that doesn't mean they were going to win. But what it does mean is that would have attracted a lot of attention. And they would have had an opportunity to perhaps get 5% of the vote and get the federal matching funds, which is how you legitimately start building a third-party infrastructure. But they chose not to do that. And by doing so—
That's not their only problem.
No, but it's a big one. And so you would say that they more or less sealed their fate. So has there been an active push to try to bring in people from other third parties to try to form one strong third party.
Zeynab, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah, I think that what we have seen is that folks have been coming over to the People's Party, and hopefully we can build coalitions as we grow. But a major new party needs to be a major new party, just as you guys had talked about. You know, we do need to work with other organizations. We do need to be able to build up community. But we have had a lot of people come to the People's Party from the Green Party and from the Working Families Party or from other places that they've been, in hopes that this will be something that will stick and be lasting because of how we've grown and the way in which we're doing this. And so we do hope, just like you guys had said, that there can be future coalitions with other organizations. And but we're looking to build. We're looking to actually build it and get ballot access and get it strategically done. There are some groups out there that exist as basically, you know, propping up the Democratic Party, but have the label of another party. We've seen that in states and nationally, and I am sure you guys have as well. And so that's not quite the same thing as building a third party or a major new party, as we like to say, because there's not one and a two party, and that's in our minds, you know, to say the next. But we need a party that's competitive. We need a party that is building grassroots support. And this kind of goes back to what you guys were asked me about earlier with raising funds. I think Nick made a really good point, and raising funds are extremely critical. And the other portion of that is getting organizers and growing on the ground and getting people out and doing direct actions and building the movement. Those two things go in tandem. And when you do that, you can get the force of the people, not just the bankroll behind organizations and candidates. You got to have both. You got to have the money, but the money goes nowhere without the people, without the policies, and without the pressure.
And I'll say that there's this idea too that that building a new party is like a 30-year project. It's going to take forever. But you brought it up, Peter. You know, if the Green Party had run Jesse Ventura, I agree that they would have at least got 15%. In fact, there was a poll conducted in the spring of that year with that before Jesse was even running or campaigning or doing anything like that. And he was polling at 18%. 18% without
doing nothing.
For doing nothing. And so that's enough to get into the debates. You get into the debates against those two corporate candidates that they're always putting up, all bets are off. The same thing was true. I was looking at polls constantly and sending them to the superdelegates in 2016 when I was working for Bernie. Polls then were showing that 2 out of every 3 Americans wanted, in fact, a independent candidate, a strong independent candidate running against Trump and Clinton. It's the same thing now, where you see 2 out of every 3 Americans who are saying that they want a major new party. For the first time, seeing half the country independent. And so this is a long running trend. And in our own history, it actually has not taken as long as some people think. And if, for example, in the 1850s, we saw that the new Republican Party, abolitionist Republican Party, was able to replace the Whig Party in just 6 years, essentially replace them completely. In other countries right now, powered by the internet, which Bernie Sanders' entire campaign was a product of the internet, it's fundraising, it's organizing, it's just every part of it. You're actually seeing political parties break through neoliberal two-party systems in Europe and Latin America. So this is happening just in Mexico. Morena, for example, in 2012, formed as a movement. 2014 became a party. 2018 swept the presidency and both houses of the national legislature and the majority of the governorships in the country. So it can be done, and we have tools like the internet that provide crowdfunding, crowd-based organizing, distributed the ability to bypass the gatekeepers of information in corporate media that we have never had before.
And I definitely, this isn't the 1850s. I will say that it's definitely a different time now in terms of, the corporatized, the corporate capture of our government is a lot different now than it was 170 years ago. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a hunger, if you will, for that change. One final super chat from Renee Johnson again. MPP raised 131,000 approximately the first 6 months of 2021. I spent all but 25,000 of that. I don't know how you have that information, but I'm sure it's probably on good authority. How are they running candidates with that? I guess the question is, do you guys feel right now where you stand financially that you can field strong, viable candidates? And I know, Zeynab, you alluded to the fact that you don't need a boatload of money, but obviously you do need some money in order to do that, depending on how much cash is on hand. And I guess the question would be, and we saw one of the comment in the comment section that I do think was important was more or less a strategy at this point. Do you have an idea of how many candidates you plan on running? You know, if there's any type of that type of formal strategy, or if it's a little too soon for that, certainly understood, but would like to hear, do you guys have like a formal game plan at this point?
Well, for 22
For
anyway.
22, do you have an idea about how many candidates you see yourselves running?
Well, the two-party system has made itself brittle in a way that you actually mentioned before, Peter, and that is that a lot of districts, in order to consolidate and their own power, they have, through gerrymandering, made most districts uncompetitive. They have turned most districts into one-party districts. And so as an independent party, you can come in and you can run as a second party. And in some states like California, where you have top two primaries, there's an additional element there. So I'll say that. But I think Zeynab really, who built up some of the winning campaigns, helped to elect some of the squad members. You probably have the most to say about that.
Well, some of the biggest things that we're working on right now is getting ballot access in our states so that we can run a candidate. And we've got that going, and we're organizing around that, and people need to get behind and around that as hardcore as we would around a race. Because in order to change it, and in order to do that, we have to push for that as well, just like the Red Berets are pushing for Medicare for All, and whole Washington is pushing for Medicare for All as a ballot initiative in Washington. Oh, you got your Red Beret. And that, I just wanted to give them a shout out because
I can't do it without looking in the mirror. I got to get it right.
Yeah, you look like a French painter.
Shout out to Fran. Shout out to Fran from the Red Beret ladies. Thank you. All right. Sorry. I have to do that. It's sort of like.
It's the jingle.
Well, no, we don't have advertisers or sponsors, so I just give plugs to people who give us free crap. Well, so thanks, Fran.
Well, it's not crap; it's beautiful.
I mean,
but if there's an organization that, if you hear Red Berets, we think of the ladies for whole Washington.
Yes, sorry.
And the amazing job that they've been doing. And I got to tell you guys, and I think this is a great place to end the conversation. You know, issues are the unifying component, I think, of what we're going to be able to do, whether people are fighting within the Democratic Party, fighting for a third party with MPP or whatnot, or people who just want to fight on the outside. And to me, there are certain issues that I really think have captured the imagination of a lot of people. In particular, Medicare for All is something that I personally believe is never going to pass on Capitol Hill. The only way it's going to happen is if we do it the way Canada did it, which is pass it province to province, or in this case, state to state. And right now we have 3 states in particular. Zeynab, we were talking the other day, there is definitely a movement in Kentucky that seems to be brewing, especially with Governor Beshear, who is maybe the best Democratic governor in the country, to be honest, in terms of what he's been able to do. But in terms of the on-the-ground infrastructure, it seems like right now you've got the New York Health Act in New York, you've got whole Washington in Washington, and you've got CalCare in California. I think fighting for those types of issues is how we could bring a lot of people together.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about closing on that note, the idea that even if we have a different idea in terms of what is the best strategy in terms of party infrastructure, fighting for the issues like the Green New Deal, like Medicare for All, like the living wage, I think that's how we could get the most people together at once. How do you guys feel about that?
Nick, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I think that pushing for things like that, I think that's actually where the role of direct action comes in, because that can help bring people together who, whether you think and you still believe in reforming the Democratic Party, you support building a major new party, that taking direct action and pushing for those issues, whether it's a general strike, whether it is going to the offices, whether it's occupations on Capitol Hill or of state houses, I think that is an excellent strategy, and that is exactly the kind of thing that we need to do.
Yeah, that's something that we're big proponents of. We're actually planning on pushing very heavily going into January 22 with the New York Health Act. I think that that is the state that has the closest shot right now of having it happen. And that if everybody coalesced behind that, that we might be able to make an inroad. And I think that that would be really, I mean, I don't live in New York. It certainly doesn't benefit me personally, but I think it's something that if they're the first state that can have it, then we should all be sort of fighting for that.
Well, you know, Biden could pass 1881 right now. He could use emergency resolution, and every single one of us would have Medicare and Medicaid.
He could do a nice debt jubilee. He could cancel the debt. He could be doing a lot of things. He could be giving refuge to the 80,000 something Afghanistan people that need help, and not bragging on 2,000 that he's helping. Like somehow we should be thanking him for the mess he got us in the first place. And yet he's part of that all group. Oh no.
Now, look, I know you guys have been talking about the third party movement and what is the best way to possibly do this. I am the elected independent senator from Vermont.
So you say.
And so I am.
Okay.
And so what I want to say is that for all of you that are watching here tonight, I want you to stick to the issues, fight together, build a stronger movement, because that's the only way that you're going to get me to do it. That's just the way it is. Remember, I am the Senate Budget Committee chair.
I've heard that.
And that's
too.
very important. No, it's very important. It's a very important job. And so because that's an important job, I am going to make sure that we get the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill through.
I'll believe it when I see it, Bernie.
Well, I'm actually going on the road. I'm going to be talking to a lot of people in West Virginia and other states and let them know just how important this is for the people. I know I should be president right now, but I'm doing the best I can.
Yeah, so we have some issues about that.
Say hi. I figured that some people wanted to know if Bernie was here, if he actually cared about the conversation. Here. He does care about the conversation, and we really like Jen. Jen's doing a great job.
Thank you,
Bernie.
Bernie.
You guys are doing a great job.
All right, thank you.
So there you go. You got your Bernie out of me.
That's it. That's the whole Bernie thing.
I hope you enjoyed.
Too bad that's not what he's doing right now.
Right. Well, that's the thing. If he gets that through, I'd be happy if he gets that through. But I'm not holding my breath.
Bernie Sanders ran as organizer, and this is personal for me because I worked for him and with him.
Yeah.
Bernie Sanders ran as the organizer in chief. That he was going to be the organizer in chief, and yet when COVID came around, and he had an entire his campaign, he was basically ending his campaign, and he had the biggest progressive organizing infrastructure in the country, and he could have devoted that instead. The Slack teams, the texting teams, the call bank teams. Instead, he could have devoted that towards organizing a general strike. He could have devoted that towards building a major new party. He could have devoted it towards mutual aid. He could have devoted it towards innumerable things. And instead, what he did is he actually disbanded it. He disbanded it, and hundreds of his own staffers sent him a letter telling him, how can you do this? How can you disband the greatest engine of organizing in the country at a time of so much need? And that, in fact, they didn't draw the connection, but I am. This reminds me of when Obama disbanded OFA back in 2009 because he didn't want a grassroots engine pushing him in the same way that this would have been pushing Bernie and pushing Biden.
I have to say that is a great point, but got to give Kyler credit where credit's due. Why didn't MPP field a candidate for the California governor recall race? I think even if just to have somebody on the ballot, I would think that could have definitely been interesting. Is that, and you guys currently have access in California, if I remember correctly. Is any particular reason why a candidate wasn't fielded?
No, we actually don't have ballot access in California.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. That's important. You have to have ballot access. You can't get on the ballot.
They've already told you they don't have that.
I apologize. I thought that was the case.
That's right.
But listen, I think this conversation where, look, there were things that you guys did a great job on. There are things that we disagree on. I think that it's important to have these conversations because ultimately, and this is what I would tell everybody, we agree on the primary issues that we're fighting
we
for.
all want everybody to have healthcare. We all want everybody to have housing. We all want everybody to, be able to go to school and not be in debt for the rest of their life. Like these are things we all want people to have a living wage.
If you guys are so inclined, because again, they do need help. We're not encouraging it. It's entirely up to you.
No.
But peoplesparty.org/donate. If you did enjoy the conversation and you did like what they had to say this evening, go check it out.
And you could be part of the building of something because, I mean, that's,
Or at the very least, go to peoplesparty.org, learn more about what they're doing. And if you agree with what they're doing, great. If you don't, understandable. But go with an open mind, give them an opportunity to make their case. We hope you enjoyed what they had to say this evening. Either way, we hope that you subscribe, like, comment, and share. We want as many people to get out and about and see what we're talking about here this evening. I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as much as we did. It's always good to have some pushback. Zeynab, love you, miss you. Hope you're doing well. Nick, it's great to finally make your acquaintance. And
Oh, you never met before?
we have not.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Actually, no, you know what? I take that back. Nick and I did meet. We met briefly at the People's Summit in Chicago when Levy Sanders was speaking in that room. So I do remember meeting you briefly. But with that said, we really do appreciate you guys coming on this evening.
Thank you guys.
And we hope you guys keep in touch, and I'm sure we'll
For
have
sure.
another opportunity down the road to continue the conversation.
Well, thanks for the Bernie impression.
Oh, well, of course, you enjoy that. And trust me when I tell you, you people are terrible. You're not going anywhere. When I tell I'll be back in 24.
You're
I'll
going
be
nowhere.
back in 24.
You're
Totally back in 24.
You'll be Ron DeSantis' vice president.
No, Ron will be my vice president. Totally believe it. We appreciate you guys coming on this evening.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us
Bye,
on.
guys. Thank you.
Bye. Bye, Z. Bye, Nick. So look, I think it was a very productive conversation, but I do think that they were avoiding a number of questions.
The chat was getting rowdy.
Well,
the chat was rowdy.
And
in all fairness, I have to tell the people in the chat a couple things. One, I really can't see it that well. So I spend a lot of time trying to see it, and it's scrolling, and I really can't see it very well.
That's part of the reason why you do the super chats. So that way you can see everything that they're talking about.
And I do the best. I do the best I can. And the other thing is that I am not as well versed on the people movement for a People's Party. So all of these stories and backstories and whatever the drama is and the stuff that people know, I really don't.
That's fair.
That's the thing. So I don't know it.
And I think that this is fairly the consensus that we found from a lot of people. Look, that these are the responses, and
look, it is what it is. Look, we this was just a conversation.
No, Max, we're not talking about not rowdy like.
Oh, I'm.
It's we meant that it's lively.
Yes, lively.
It's a lively
I don't mean rowdy. I'm sorry. I don't.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean there was adversity in the chat, and I'm not saying it isn't warranted. But I'm just saying I really have a hard time seeing what it is.
Listen, we tried to get this is the thing. We're not going to be adversarial. We're trying to have a conversation, but we are going to push back. If they are saying things that we think are detrimental or frankly dissuasive from the discourse in the sense that they're actually trying to improve things. But look, we asked the questions, as many as you guys brought in, especially about what's been going on in the Slack chats with volunteers, very upset about what has been going on.
Yeah, see, this is the thing I have no idea about, guys. That's the thing. I really don't.
I was privy to it. I won't say who I spoke to about it, but let's just say that I was privy to some of that. And at the end of the day, if they're not going to talk about it, that's not going to help their organization. I also don't think that their response about us talking about Nina Turner was good. I think that, look, at the end of the day, I really don't know how viable what they're trying to do is. I really don't. I don't know enough about how far they are and where they are and the money of it all and the support that they have. But there have been very valid criticisms about what they're doing. I mean, we didn't get into issues about funding with them, but my understanding is that they are funded by people that are very divisive and people that are controversial and that are very alienating, and that's a problem. And you guys know who the person is, and we were not going to bring him up in conversation.
No.
But the one thing that we will say about the person who will not be named, I guarantee you, there are a lot of people who don't want to get involved in the movement because Sans person is involved.
It's true. And so it is what it look. There's definitely drama and controversy in the ranks of what's going on with that. And so, and it's something I don't really know enough about to comment on. I just know that I watched their summit. I thought they had good speakers, and then that was the end of that.
Yeah. And you would think that they would have been able to jumpstart it more so from that point.
But I don't see how they're talking about getting a candidate on a ballot in 22. How are they going to run a candidate in 20? I mean, they're saying, okay, I guess you could run someone as an independent and have, but I mean, I just don't see how that, I don't know. I have certain concerns.
Yeah, no. And again, like I said, I think that
I agree. And I'm being fair about it. I think, but the problem is the people that are so anti-Democratic Party. And let me be very clear. I really am. I don't care for them. I don't like them. I don't agree with their platform.
We're in a very difficult situation here in Broward County.
Because but it's what there is here.
Because unfortunately, it's not just Debbie Wasserman Schultz. It's you have a lot of people who represent the Democratic Party in the state of Florida. Broward County is the fourth, I believe, or fifth most blue county based on population in the United States.
It is what it is.
It's basically, I think it's Kings County, New York. What's the county from Chicago? Cook County, Illinois, San Francisco County, California, and then I believe Broward is right there.
So it is what it is. We're in the situation we're in. So I am by no means a cheerleader of Democrats at all.
Yeah,
don't care for them. I actually tend to not and avoid it at all costs.
And Ray Jukes is right. Jesse Ventura was a missed opportunity.
And that's something that was frustrating. And that really proved to me. And look, I've always said this about the Greens. I think that obviously I like their platform. I don't have any problem with their platform. I think they're nice people. Every Green person that I've met has always been, on the same mission as me. My issue with the Greens, or what I always say about the Greens, is I just think they're too niche.
Oh, absolutely.
And even their name is so niche that, let's say, a working class, more conservative person who would be part of a Labor Party that was pushing wouldn't go join the hippy dippy Greens. And again, I have voted Green, so I'm not criticizing them in that way. But I don't see that it would have a broad enough appeal. And that's been my concern about the same with the People's Party.
And so much of it is just common sense because, the Greens came down here in 2016. Jill Stein came to Miami and we went to their rally and they had a decent amount of, nothing that's earth shattering or that big of a deal, but, and she unfortunately had a conversation and so much is just talking about the fact that they needed 5% of the vote in order to get matching funds federally. And they weren't even emphasizing that. I'm thinking, are you guys serious? Or are you just trying to be a protest?
That's the thing. So I've just always found them very niche. And that's my thought about what's going to happen with the People's Party is that if it doesn't appeal to a broad enough range, it'll stay very niche. So then even when you have ballot access and you have even running candidates, if you're very niche, you're not going to make a dent in what we're trying to do. You're not going to be able to really push people in. And that's the problem. So you have to be broad, which is why, again, I do not believe, truthfully, as much as I love the idea of a third party, I don't see how we can be creating a third party when we don't even have a second one. And that's the truth. We do not have a Labor Party in this country. We don't have a Labor Party. So anything that isn't that, to me, is superfluous until we have a Labor Party. That's just how.
If you guys like our content and we hope you'll check out the rest of our channel,
be Patreons.
If you become a Patreon, you get this lovely sticker of this lovely little lady.
This is Lulu, and this is Lulu.
She is really the star of the show.
She's the star. So this is Lulu. Right. I was thinking I want to do kids shirts. I want to do kids shirts with Lulu's picture.
You could actually do that. That'd be a
do kids shirts with these.
You could become a Patreon for as little as $5 a month, or $10 a month, or if you're really generous, $25 a month. If you do become at least a you become a $10 Patreon, which is obviously
first off, if you're a $5 Patreon, you get the special bracelet, which I don't have any right now because I'm going to have to.
We're on a back order because we've got a lot of $5 Patreons right now.
No. I've got all those people have been serviced.
Yes. So, and if you become a $10 Patreon. And
Linda Aches Farns, yours are in the mail, sent out on Friday. So, the generational change jersey, that's yours for patrons. But I have noticed something, and I don't know if I told you this. So something that people do, which shouldn't surprise me, is they sign up, they be a Patreon, they get the merch, and then they quit. So actually, what I'm doing is when people have been there for a couple of months.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I didn't tell you that. So when people have been there, if you've been a member for a couple of months, you will get your fulfillment. But I kind of do wait and see. I do. And I think that, I'm not running like a discount store where, somebody, can just do that. Like it's not cool.
Patron mags. Yes. Yes, you're right. I butcher words sometimes. I do. I don't do it on purpose. It's Patreon is the app. Yes. Thank you for loving Lulu. She is. So if you guys want to hang around, because she's the best. And she's wearing a generational change collar. Yep. And so for those who are going to stick around for our final segment, we do have our Florida on Mondays. Is we focus on Florida. So, which for people not from Florida, generally it is full of stupidity at a level that only Floridians truly understand. We want to make it at least somewhat entertaining for everyone, so they understand exactly what we deal with down here. These two, yeah, for real. All right, but did you?
can't with him.
We are of a very, especially here in Broward, we are a very objective mind about where our governor stands. He is an extremely popular governor, maybe the most in the whole country, especially amongst the MAGA crowd, the R's, and with independents. Now, of course, he's despised by the Democrats. That's a given. But the question is he going to overstep his bounds where he's actually going to lose support?
This is interesting. We are really having the mask battle here in Florida, the battle.
And here's what I don't understand. If he was a great governor and really was just adhering to his base, the independents, but wasn't trying to antagonize the Democrats, we, as we like to say, as you like to say, Jen, the attorney, we are a county strong state. Florida really has the power of the county commissions in Florida cannot be understated.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful.
So it'll be interesting. This is really turning into a pissing match between DeSantis and the Florida man. Yeah. So he put out this rule that any districts, they're giving them 48 hours to reverse their mask mandates or they're going to lose their state funding.
Right.
And now, of course, we have this ancillary article that the feds are ready to investigate whether students' rights to safe education are violated. Like, this is Florida, of course, is the show.
If it could happen,
it's like such a circus.
If it could happen in any state, it can happen here. We are the butt end of a lot of jokes, but with good reason. We earn our reputation, as we often like to say. And again, this is no different. Why are you fighting over masks in schools? Why don't you, as the governor, just say, this is a county issue. If the counties want a mask mandate, that is up to them. And it seems like Broward and I think Hillsborough County, or maybe it's Pinellas County, I know it's in the Tampa area. If they want a mask mandate, then have a mask mandate. It's one of the safer ways to avoid spreading the virus. But the idea that this is the hill you want to die on is amazing.
So essentially, this is what happened. In an order sent Friday to the districts in Alachua and Broward counties, the first of five districts in the state to impose mask requirements this month. The State Board of Education said that if they do not reverse their mandates in 2 days, districts will have to provide Commissioner of Education the current salaries of each school board member.
That is amazing.
Yeah. So wait, scroll. If you're going to bogart that, then move it. The Florida Department of Education said it then will start gradually withholding state funds equal to 1/12 of the salaries of the board members monthly until each district demonstrates compliance. Are you kidding me?
If that's
not you kidding me?
If that ain't Big Brother, I don't know what is.
First of all,
you will comply.
Oh my God. And so here's the thing that's so screwed up about this. They're really using children as pawns in a political pissing match.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ludicrous. So you're thinking that reducing the salaries of people who are trying to protect the children is going to be a good political move. It's not a good look.
No,
it's really not a good look.
It isn't.
Going after educators it's never a good look.
It's not. And again, it's like, I understand, guys. There are 67 counties in the state of Florida, and unfortunately, only about 7 or 8 of them are blue. So they're looking at it as long as this doesn't hurt us and it keeps our rabid base going, then that's good enough. It's Florida for a reason. I can somewhat sympathize with people and their fear of vaccines, because people really do have that fear. But the idea that wearing a mask is the hill you want to die on, it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah,
it really is.
But it you know what? It's just the kind of crazy.
Like I said, why would DeSantis not just say, let the counties decide? I'm not getting
because he's using it to rile people up. And then this also came up that was interesting about DeSantis. So we have this sort of like little DeSantis COVID section here.
He is our governor and he dominates the headlines.
No, go there. So this was very interesting. So this week, dozens of users on social media and several media outlets drew attention to the link between Governor Ron DeSantis' support for COVID-19 treatments from the company Regeneron and his top donor's financial interest in the company.
Imagine that.
Shocking. So the top donor to the Friends of Ron DeSantis Political Action Committee.
What a name of a pack, right?
Friends of Ron DeSantis Action Committee is Ken Griffin, CEO of the hedge fund Citadel Advisors.
He is the Citadel. He does run.
He has donated $10.75 million to the PAC, including $5 million donation in April.
And we're not even in an election season yet.
Citadel,
this is way in advance.
Citadel nearly tripled its stock holding in Regeneron in the second quarter of this year, according to filings from NASDAQ and the SEC. So in other words, one of Ron DeSantis' biggest donors have increased their investment in the company that creates Regeneron, or Regeneron is the name of the company, but it's the anti-COVID treatment, whatever it is. And so this is why now you've got Ron DeSantis pushing this treatment. It's just like ridiculous.
Lefty, we can't argue with you. Anytime something happens in Florida, people they just show Bugs Bunny sawing the state off.
Seriously, we get it. So we have a governor that is threatening educators and school board people for putting mask requirements on, while simultaneously promoting the treatment that he gets money from. What could go wrong?
But again, and this is what we wanted to, and this is what we want to tell you.
Florida.
We like Annette Kyler. She's down here by us. You know, she's somebody who
is that?
Annette Kyler? No. Annette,
no.
Oh, Annette, well, it's Annette Taddeo.
Oh, you mean Annette Taddeo?
It's not Toledo, but yes.
She's, you know what? Look,
she's definitely, you know, she swings between moderate and progressive.
She goes both ways.
You know, listen, I don't see her.
She does establishment plenty, but then she also was one of the people in our state that voted against the weighted vote, which, you know, is something that we have that's inherently undemocratic about our state.
She plays both sides, but I don't think Annette's a bad person.
No, I don't either.
No, I think that she's definitely. I think she definitely gives a damn, and I can't say that about a lot of people who are. She does,
but I think that it would really depend on who she would be surrounding herself with in such a venture.
If Annette is going to run, it really comes down to if she really thinks that there's an opportunity, and I do think she would run for governor. I don't think she would run for senator. Being in Tallahassee and being there, I think it does make a huge difference. Is this part of
well, this is part of it. So at the same time, while Ron DeSantis is threatening to withhold salaries,
it looks like DC is going to get involved.
Right. So the Office of Civil Rights is prepared to take on any investigation necessary to support the safe reentry into schools if allegations of students' rights to a free, appropriate public education are being violated. That sounds like a platitude sandwich to me. So I don't really know what that looks like logistically. But basically, they felt the need to stick their nose and basically shame DeSantis for not protecting students enough. So,
but what you guys have to remember, those who have been in politics ever since the Bernie Trump wave that started in the spring of 2015, is you have to really get good at recognizing how the game is being played. Ron DeSantis is doing this because he is very likely, again, I know people don't want to hear it, but he is likely to get reelected governor of this state, and he is going to run for president. And why is that? Because he is from the Trump philosophy of any publicity is good publicity.
And the truth is, it kind of is.
Even if people are talking about him and hating him, he is the only governor that is getting airtime.
Yeah, we've been getting hated, and we've gotten tons of new subscribers.
But the point is, that's how they look at it. It is a zero-sum game from DeSantis's perspective.
Yep.
He is beloved by the MAGA crowd, by Republicans in general.
Let's be clear, we have no love for DeSantis.
By palatable to the Republicans who wouldn't otherwise support Trump. Independents really like him. And he's trying to become the next president. And you saw what happened when Biden tried to throw a jab at him. It didn't end well. It didn't.
If
Biden was smart, he'd stay as far away from DeSantis
Biden is stop kicking that.
Sorry.
Biden is the person that's bringing a knife to a gunfight if he thinks that he's going to
fighting. This ain't fighting Trump. This is a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
He's fighting a guy who served in the military.
Not just that, but somebody who isn't just like flippant, blurb out the mouth, like diarrhea of the mouth. You know, this is somebody who is a little bit more smart and calculating.
Yeah.
So this was your story that you
told.
Good. So
very good point, Steve. We do agree with that. Hopefully that does change.
But I do hope so.
I just don't think DeSantis has the skeletons that Cuomo does. That's the big difference. So we do have a heartwarming story.
We have a heartwarming story.
We've got a Florida story.
We're going to end with the Florida, but we're going to start. We have a happy story now. And Peter is particularly fond of wiener dogs.
My father happens to have a wiener dog, a mini dachshund.
I don't know if you noticed the dog in the pool.
It kind of looks like my dog.
That looks like Reese.
Yeah, it does look like Reese.
Did you notice that?
Yes. That is very cute. That is very cute. So apparently Florida does have something to cheer about.
Yay!
So during these dog days of summer, it's only natural to share stories about dogs. But this story isn't about just any dog. Riley is currently the 3rd highest ranked Dachshund in North America.
Yeah.
Jumping and racing his way to big titles.
It's exciting stuff.
Christine Boyd says she and Riley more deeply discovered his talents during the pandemic. That's nice.
Okay. So we have a champion.
A champion doggy dog?
Champion dachshund.
Are we playing?
I don't know what he does. I think he just chases. He's like fast swimming or something. I don't know. But you were just very happy to see a hot dog in the news.
Well, they're basically badger dogs because they are very fast.
Which is hilarious. They don't look fast.
Yeah, I don't think
you can't. No, if you play it, we'd have to reshare. So you can't do it. But anyway, I think that was just really cute.
And it is heartwarming. But again,
9 inches tall. He's only 9 inches tall. That, you know what? Here's for people that are vertically challenged.
Definitely a speedster. But again, dogs just make life better. They really do.
They do. Everything is better with a dog.
And as Bill Murray likes to say, I trust any dog that, I don't trust any person that doesn't like dogs, but I trust any dog that doesn't like a
It's
person.
true. If your dogs particularly dislike someone, take note.
Yeah. It's usually a good sign.
So the Florida.
This is where we conclude.
Okay.
Because this is going to only be a Florida
couple.
story.
Right. No, only a Florida couple. So this Florida couple gets busted on their way in Hawaii for using fake vaccination cards. They actually this is the new industry. So, we used to do fake IDs. Now we need fake vaccination IDs, apparently, is the new industry. So Florida couple arrested in Hawaii after allegedly presenting fake COVID vaccination cards for themselves and their 2 children. This is a couple, by the way, from Miami.
Of course they are.
They're extremely local to us. They were taken into custody shortly after they arrived in Honolulu.
And this could not be any more perfect. The screener at the airport, when they came through, noticed an anomaly about the age of the children and the vaccine. And that's how we got involved. Because of course they would make that mistake. You would say one thing on the vaccine and another thing on their actual passport. Or you don't need a passport for Hawaii.
No, you don't need a passport for Hawaii, but you can look at a child and know that they were too young to have received a COVID vaccine.
Well, we absolutely knew that any of the stories that were going to come out about people forging their vaccine cards was good.
Florida.
Could it be any other state? No. It could, of course not.
It's just par for the course.
It absolutely is. And so,
but you have to wonder how they got through on the front end. Like, okay, so they got stopped in Honolulu when they got there, but how did they get through on the front end? That's what's interesting. Why wouldn't you do that?
Kyler, I'm actually in agreement. I actually think that one of the ways that you can, and the same would go for Alaska and other places.
Don't say that. I have one of my bucket list things is to spend 4 seasons in Alaska.
So you can spend a year in Alaska?
I do.
That's pretty cool.
I'd love to spend a year in Alaska.
Alaska is definitely on the bucket list. Definitely want to get
moose.
there. But it is true because again, as an island isolated from the rest of the world,
Hawaii,
you don't really have. You could technically just have the citizens that are residents. And that could really stop the spread. But unfortunately, but you're not going to stop people that live there from coming and going from there. So once you have people that live there that are coming and going from there, it doesn't matter because they're bringing back whatever they're bringing back. Because of course it's Florida. And that is the only way we know how to do things here. Rather than do the easy way, we do it the stupid way.
Well, they obviously didn't want to get vaccinated and they wanted to go to Hawaii because they wanted what they wanted. Well, that's just too bad. So sad. Actions have consequences sometimes. And so what I will say, and this is something that Kyler brings up, which is a great point, and this is how I think we can conclude the conversation for tonight, is a lot of people are looking at Florida and thinking, well, how are we still the hotbed for COVID? And one of the things that you have to remember is that Florida is the most traveled state in the United States. And we also have a very huge elderly population. That is true too. As well, very vulnerable. Disney World is the most visited place on earth. There is nothing bigger. So when you constantly the world's largest petri dish. It is. And think about what it's going to be like in the next couple of, you think it's bad now, guys? They are about to start, I think, I could be wrong. I have to look that up. I believe they're about to start Halloween Horror Nights. And he's right. They are. And my son actually is going to Halloween Horror Nights. He's gone. Well, but I digress. He's an adult. There's really not a lot I could do, people. We are running out of hospital beds, and I can attest to that. My husband is a physician, and right now the hospitals are spread very, very thin right now down here. And What's scary is the stress that it puts on the infrastructure for things also that are not COVID things.
And this is something
people are not getting the same quality care for whatever their issues are because we're just so spread thin.
And we talk about the unifying issue in terms of, why are we not able to get anything done? Like, why is it that we can't get this virus under control? Again, it's very hard to stop Mother Nature, but Disney World and Miami are two of the biggest destinations in the world. And because of corporate special interests, there is no way to actually shut it down and enforce it. You see, you can suggest it, but you can't stop it.
No. And you could, but they won't.
But they won't.
So when you're saying like they prioritize tourists over people, no, they prioritize money over people.
Oh, yeah.
That's it. If the people, they don't follow people, they just follow dollars.
And this is the other thing about, Disney Enterprises. They don't donate to Republicans.
No.
They don't donate to Democrats. They donate to everybody. Whoever's willing to take the corporate special interest money, whether it's Big Sugar, whether it's Big Pharma.
People don't understand exactly how powerful Disney is in Florida.
Oh, no.
I don't think people truly can possibly understand that. It's sort of akin to like Coca-Cola in Atlanta. Like Disney in Florida, it's a huge thing.
It is.
It's huge power. And this used to be the case years ago. If somebody knows how it is now, please let me know. But for years, Disney had an agreement with the state regarding maintaining the roads and the highways in the Orlando area in lieu of taxes. They had a certain kind of arrangement. I don't know the details of it, but the point is they have a lot of control over things in Florida. And there is no way that you're going to have that.
And why do anything right when you could just grease the wheels of the politicians? And let me tell you something, guys. You know where Disney World is? It's in Orlando. Who do you think runs Orlando? Who do you think runs the surrounding areas? It's the Democrats. So don't think for a second that this is a problem that is a one-party problem. This is an everybody problem, and it is about corporate special interests. That's what it's about. What are you trying to do?
That.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not, we're not at that point yet with the refrigerator trucks in Florida, but our hospitals are definitely at capacity. So for people, and this is the kind of thing where if we had actual healthcare in this country, would be more manageable. And it would be more manageable because more and more people would have preventative care and primary care, and they wouldn't have to rely on the ER for their primary care. Right. So the people that don't have COVID, but they have nowhere else to go for their other issues, are now subjected to dealing with being infected by COVID, but going to the hospital because that's the only place they can go to for primary care. So it's all connected. And, obviously Florida does have a very large vulnerable population.
We really do. And again, our governor is not helping.
No,
he's not.
No.
So it's again, he's not the sole reason. No. But he is part of it.
But I want people to know that when we talk about him in terms of like that him being president, it's not because that's what we like.
It's because we can see that you can see the train.
We choose not that. I assure you.
How you see like the train coming right at you. We can see the train coming, and we're going to get off the tracks before it hits us. But
and I'm saying that this is going to happen, and I'm not saying I want it to happen. Those are very different things. And Correct. Again, I reiterate, as I always have, we had Rick Scott for 8 years as our governor, and for anybody who knows anything, then you know that DeSantis is still a step up.
Yeah.
So we have an extremely low bar. And I liked what Zeynab was saying. The bar is in hell.
It is.
And it is. It really is. That's a
We're trying to get out of the ninth circle as we
Right.
speak.
We really are. The bar is in hell. And, basically the difference between Ron DeSantis and Rick Scott is, I think Ron DeSantis is one step higher towards getting out of hell. But again, low bar here.
Yeah.
So we're not proponents of Ron DeSantis at all.
But as long as we're here, we're going to continue to spread the word about how to build a more cohesive local grassroots.
What do we have coming up?
That's what Gen Core is about. That's what our Generational Change podcast is about. We do not have much in the way of a current special guest, but it turns out that our candidate guest might ultimately end up being our special guest.
We have a candidate guest, but that's neither here nor there. Do we have anything else coming up? Like, I don't know.
Well, we're planning
a
Labor Day panel. We like to do a lot of different things on the show, guys.
Yeah.
And so for anyone who is new, we highly recommend that you check out our previous shows. We do a lot of stuff in terms of how to we try to educate, we try to inform, we try to do everything we can to spread the word.
Try to do long form interviews. We have candidates.
So on Thursday, our we'll have 2 guests on Thursday, but one of our guests on Thursday is going to be Morgan Harper, who just announced her candidacy for the U.S. Senate in the state of Ohio. That is a huge race, also depending on what our good friend Nina is going to choose to do. Morgan is somebody who has already ran for office and did a pretty solid job.
Morgan's great.
She is definitely great. So you guys definitely want to check out
She's
that
the one who
conversation.
co-opted the word Morganize.
Great word.
Loved it.
That works.
You know what? It was one of those things, like it was just the right amount of corniness. Like it was really good. I got to tell you, that was her thing. Morganize.
It works.
Yeah.
If it works, that's all that matters.
Yeah.
And
Anyway.
people will remember it.
Yes.
So it's the jingle. So with that said, we really appreciate you coming on tonight. Remember, hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Hit the bell for reminders. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you are feeling generous, if you'd like to become a Patreon, t-shirt, Lulu sticker.
And we do have bracelets.
And you do help us grow our local organizing when it comes to helping out various efforts, whether it's community gardens, beach cleanups, food distribution.
It's service, and it's also helping us do things like promote issues, promote candidates, promote
Correct.
policies, do what we're trying to do.
Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you Thursday.